For a long time, until a certain point, the main character thought that he and his sister would have an ordinary life, until the demon's blood splashed around and hit him right in the eyes. It all started with the beast summoners who were able to penetrate his world. The whirlpool of fate drew the hero in and gave him a great opportunity. But life is not so simple. His beast was now sitting in front of him. I remembered the words of Xiao Xinyu when he said that no one had passed. The word no one was repeated several times. However, now everything has changed. Animals could come to the rescue. And the hero decided that he would still fight for his future. Even if his enemies mock him, his friends betray him, and those around him look down on him, the guy still had a goal: to destroy their illusions and rise above them, proving his strength. Xiao Xinyu knew that he could rise to the very top and achieve success. 1,000 years ago, the magical beasts were ruled by a clan of dragons. There was also one who stood above all. They called him the demonic god. He had exorbitant ambitions and sowed chaos everywhere, enjoying his own greatness. An army of magical beasts was visible, taking over the human world. The demonic god's greed knew no bounds, seeking to plunge every part of the universe into endless darkness. Then, in the face of death, humanity fully revealed its potential. At the dawn of the awakening of spiritual power, a select few gained the ability to control magical beasts. These beasts could be bloodthirsty, using their powers at the behest of humans. They began to be called beast hunters. They could be completely different in size, both large and smaller. Such beasts could be controlled by the chosen ones, those who recognized a special power within themselves, regardless of gender and age. Some of the animals looked absolutely terrifying, but there were also those that looked cute. The beasts used magical spheres to attack or other abilities. A magical beast was spotted over the northern district of the city of Tsinosa, disturbing the peace. The magical beast, having broken free, fell straight into the residential area, causing chaos and destruction. Xiao Xinyu was a third grader at Xiangnan High School. Now he stood in front of his opponent, looking at all the chaos that he had created. It was then that the demon's blood hit him right in the eyes. From that moment on, life took a completely different turn, not the way the main character imagined it. At the beginning of this catastrophe, when heaven and earth were not yet separated, Xinyu made an ancient treaty sealed with his own blood. From the void he summoned mystical beings linked to his destiny. After this, people heard and saw confirmation that the magical beast was dead. Despite the danger, the hero remained calm, remembering the vow he made at the very beginning. His resolve unwavering, he heard a voice shouting from afar, informing him that there were survivors. A beautiful girl approached him. She apologized for the inconvenience, and next to her stood a huge beast. Su Ruyan, the principal of the Azure Dragon Academy, said that they would compensate for the damage and pay compensation on behalf of her academy. With this news, the guy was left standing in the middle of his destroyed room with a smile on his face. The rector, along with her charges, mounted the magical beasts, preparing to fly away, and said goodbye to the hero. Then Xinyu realized that these were the hunters. In this world, everyone dreamed of becoming one. But the main character didn't even have the money to buy an animal. Suddenly a small animal ran up to him, whining pitifully. This puppy started licking the guy. Saliva flew in all directions. The animal was very pleased with the new acquaintance. The hero spoke louder, wanting to know where this dog came from, whether it was possible to tame it. While he was dealing with this pet, he smeared even more blood and dirt on the floor of his house. But the hero didn't care much about it. He remembered that the textbooks mentioned a creature that looked like a dog. It seemed it was a storm dog. He thought about the fact that there were only 3 days left until the national exam, and he had to try hard to prepare in time. But all this was good news for the hero, so he raised his beast above his head, calling it a good boy. Now I had to go outside and walk down the street. In the city of Qingfeng, there was a store to which the main character was heading with his dog. But he stopped at the entrance and thought, maybe it would be better to give it to someone who could take care of it. He thought that the little animal had no future with him, since it had eaten the entire week's supply of food in one night. The shop owner came out to ask what the guy was doing at the door so early in the morning. After these words, Xinyu immediately asked if the man wanted to buy the beast that was in his arms. But as soon as the owner realized that it was a storm dog, an animal with such a low pedigree, he replied that no one would agree to buy it. The dog felt offended by such statements. She hit on the guy's chest. He was indignant. Why shout like that? He should have just answered. As soon as the hero looked at the animal again, he was stunned by what he saw next to him. The system window showed information about the dog, its initial form, pedigree, and other important facts about it. The main character thought he was hallucinating something and started rubbing his eyes. But the window was still next to the dog. The guy noticed the inscription above that the animal had a hidden path of evolution. The shop owner heard this, thought the hero was talking nonsense, and began to chase him away with a broom. Then the hero realized that the system window was only accessible to him. Since the man could not see it, the animal happily answered him in its own language. A handsome young man watching from the side mockingly asked Xinyu that he hadn't decided to take the exam because he didn't have a beast. Suja, the son of the richest man in Qingfeng City, asked with disdain whether he had finally managed to save up a few measly coins. The main character ordered the guy to mind his own business, and he looked mockingly at the storm dog and burst out laughing. He added sarcastically that it seemed Lin was right about him, that the protagonist didn't want to take the trapper's exam at all. He continued to mock him, saying that he couldn't do it even if he really wanted to. Then Suja asked sarcastically if the hero didn't know about his girlfriend, but the sentence was cut off, leaving an unpleasant feeling. He soon continued that his girlfriend, or rather ex-girlfriend Jiang Lin, was now dating him. At that moment, Jiang Lin herself approached them, asking Suja where he had disappeared to and saying that she had barely found him. Seeing the main character, Jiang Lin said his name with embarrassment, then turned to Suja, because the girl had broken up with this hero a long time ago. The protagonist, addressing Jiang Lin, told her not to forget who helped her when she was at rock bottom. Enraged, Suja ordered her not to speak to her in such a tone. The young man promised to grind him into dust during the exam. 3 days later, it was a clear day, although a little windy. The National Trapper examination began in Zilin Square, with the city center welcoming candidates and announcing the start of the test. At this time, the main character approached the square, a little nervous, which could be seen by his slightly shaking legs. Many of the participants noticed the hero, Xiao Xinyu, they whispered, asking why he even came here, since he didn't even have a beast. They chuckled at how this loser even dared to do such a thing. But 3 days earlier, the hero had submitted an application. This news was a shock, as the Azure Dragon Academy was the best of the 4 great academies. The protagonist politely greeted the examiner, saying that he had come for the exam. One of the examiners, a teacher from the admissions committee named Chen Qingyan, asked again whether he was really Xiao Xinyu. He noted with surprise that he was the only student in Qingfeng City who applied to their academy. Suja then loudly declared that Xiao Xinyu truly knew no bounds. He recalled that over the past 5 years, only 8 students from their city had applied to the academy, and added that none of them had passed. The guy even said that he was ready to kneel and call him father if the main character succeeded, but immediately added that this would not happen. But Xinyu looked at Suja ominously and told him to be prepared for the fact that he would soon have 2 dads. The arrogant guy didn't have time to answer. The main character told the teacher that he was ready, they could begin. The teacher replied that the selection process for the academy was very strict, and if he failed the exam, he would no longer be able to enter the Trapper Academy. The hero replied that he understood all this, despite the ridicule from the other students. Then the teacher announced the first test, a test of spiritual strength using a special ball. The guy touched this ball and the calculation of its power began. The indicator of his spiritual strength on the device froze at a modest figure of 316. The guys around him weren't even whispering anymore, but were laughing out loud at the main character, because he hadn't even come close to the threshold. The teacher, sighing in disappointment, noted that at first he thought he had a promising student in front of him, and called on the next candidate. However, suddenly someone in the audience noticed that the spiritual power indicator on the screen began to change. At first it jumped rapidly to 700. Then it continued to grow, even surpassing the 800 mark. And some in the crowd wondered if the device had broken, because that was incredible. The hero's spiritual strength indicator stopped at the incredible figure of 1028. Someone in the crowd exclaimed, asking what kind of monster he was, while Xinyu stood confidently, looking at the crowd. The hero knew that the indicator of spiritual strength is directly related to the potential of a hunter. Every 100 units allows you to enter into a contract with one magical beast. If the hero has 1028 units, then in the future, Xiao Xinyu may even become a 10-star beast hunter. This thought seemed to give the protagonist even more strength and self-confidence. The examiner quietly said that the 10-star hunter was something incredible. He added that only a few of these have appeared in the Dragon Country in recent decades. One such person was a beautiful, strict girl. One of the examiners respectfully remarked that it looked like they had found another genius. Lin reminded him that there were 2 tests at the academy, and Su Cheng dismissively stated that he would definitely fail the next test. However, then one of the representatives intervened, saying that it seemed that there had been a slight malfunction in the spiritual power meter. The final result rose to 1032. Then he quietly said that he was 2 units higher than Yening Shuang. The teacher ordered not to tell anyone about this and received confirmation. The second test, the test of the quality of the magical beast's bloodline, was announced. The examiner called candidate Xiao Xinyu and ordered him to summon his beast. Xiao Xinyu confidently summoned his beast Black Fang, saying that it was his turn now. He repeated his name again and called out even louder so that he would definitely hear him. The crowd of onlookers watched with interest to see what kind of beast this new guy had. At first, only the ear of this wonderful dog was visible. Then his little face appeared. The pet was sleeping soundly. A bubble was inflating through his nostrils as he breathed. Someone loudly protested, asking who would sign a contract with a storm dog these days. The examiner explained seriously that, in addition to spiritual strength, the quality of the bloodline is the decisive factor limiting the development of hunters. Teacher Chen Qingyan had already started to tell Xiao Xinyu that he was very sorry. However, his words were interrupted by a sudden cry from the crowd. Everyone stopped and looked, declaring that it was not a storm dog at all. Everyone froze in amazement as they watched the original storm dog begin to transform. Soon, he grew up before our eyes and acquired a new form. People could not believe their eyes, claiming that dogs do not have a path of evolution. A system window with new creature data appeared in the air. It showed a hellish storm wolf. Examiner Chen Qingyan quietly and with deep respect said Xiao Xinyu's name. The teacher looked at the main character and noted with approval that this guy knew how to surprise. He then officially announced that the test had been passed and warmly greeted them, saying, "Welcome to the Azure Dragon Academy." Seeing this, Su Cheng muttered in anger that he couldn't believe that he had passed and decided to leave quickly, saying that it was time to get out. However, the main character stopped him, asking where he was going, mockingly asking that he wouldn't even say goodbye to his father. At first, the guy didn't know what to answer, thinking at first to just run away. But he still spoke coldly, so that the freak knew his place, and declared that he was not going to kneel and call him father. In response, the protagonist only calmly said the name of the beast, Black Fang. The guy didn't expect this. He looked at the main character with fear. He asked Su Cheng what he would say now, reminding him of his own words about being ready to kneel if he could. While the main character was saying this, his beast held the impudent fellow tightly with its paws, not allowing him to move. Through the pain, the boy said that he was asking for forgiveness, calling Xinyu his father. The protagonist hissed that he couldn't have such a worthless son and ordered him to get lost. Jianglin approached the main character, and with feigned tenderness in her voice, she said that in fact, over the years she had grown very fond of him. The protagonist, looking straight at Jianglin, firmly said that all of this was already in the past. Jianglin fell to her knees in despair and began to beg him to forgive her, saying that she was wrong. But the young man was already thinking about something else. He decided that he needed to tell his sister that he had entered the Azure Dragon Academy. With these thoughts, he made a phone call and heard his sister's voice. But suddenly everything was interrupted and only the beeps on the phone could be heard. At this time, on the outskirts of Qingfeng City, chaos reigned at the farmer's market. People were screaming, asking everyone to save themselves, and there were monsters behind them. One woman panicked and asked if anyone had seen her child. Then a confident and calm female voice was heard, which told the girl in her arms not to be afraid. The same voice repeated the soothing words once more. Suddenly the girl noticed something strange and scary behind their hiding place with the girl. A terribly huge and apparently very strong monster was already looking at them. For now, this girl didn't know what to do except sit and try to protect the little girl. Meanwhile, the main character loudly and menacingly asked what the hell happened. He looked at the frightened crowd, at the panicking people, and he himself was screaming in panic, asking where his sister was. And at that time, his sister was under the gun of a terrible monster. The main character screamed in horror, "Sister!" His beast was running next to him. He saw how magical power was activated in the market, and familiar symbols appeared in the air. The command Black Fang, Hell Howl, Daybond followed, but the skill did not work, and the hero asked with irritation why it was not working. This voice gave an order to its beast using its skills. The protagonist's sister was on the verge of being defeated by the monster. She screamed in fear, not wanting her own death. Xiao Xinyu also looked at this scene with horror, remembering the rector of the academy. The last time the magical beast attacked, a man from the Azure Dragon Academy shouted something like a spell. Then the calm voice of the protagonist was heard, who decided to try. He began to pronounce the ancient words of the spell. At the beginning of this catastrophe, when heaven and earth were not yet separated, he continued by saying that he had made a pact, sealed it with his blood, and had summoned spirits from the void. He repeated this phrase once more, then commanded them to listen to his order. The hero managed to activate the hellish howl spell, and his beast rushed towards the enemy at great speed. The girl was still hiding the little girl, although she herself had long wanted to run away. Seeing the monster fall motionless to the ground, the hero wondered if he had killed it. However, he immediately realized the danger and shouted, "Stop!" His sister was still next to the monster. He ran up to her anxiously and asked if she was okay now. After making sure that she was okay, he apologized with relief for coming so late, adding, "Thank God that she was okay." The young man proudly announced to his sister that he had entered the Azure Dragon Academy, and he repeated that he was now also a beast hunter. His new friend and companion, the dog, immediately jumped on him. He introduced his beast with a smile, saying that it was his contract beast. He called out his name, the hellish storm wolf Black Fang, and the beast happily extended its paw. A man from the fleeing crowd confirmed that the monster was dead. Everyone looked on in amazement. The main character and his sister confirmed the people's words with a little embarrassment. At this time, the young mother called out to her child. She called her bunny and asked her to come to her. The mother thanked the main character and his sister. While in his mother's arms, the lost child screamed, asking his mother where she had disappeared to. Xiao Xinyu suggested that his sister go check on the monster. The protagonist discovered something amazing in the remains of the monster. He read the description of the core. It was the core of a poison attribute magical beast at the initial stage. He threw it to his beast, explaining that even the smallest core could help Black Fang evolve. He then announced to everyone gathered that the beast was dead and everyone was safe. One of the rescued people said with relief how relieved they were that they had survived, while another added with delight that Xiao Yu was now their hero. The rescued little girl looked at him with admiration and told him that she also wanted to become a trapper like you, calling him brother. The young man smiled at her encouragingly and replied that he was sure she would succeed. This difficult day for the main character ended. The moon rose in the sky. Xiao Xinyu slept peacefully in his bed, tightly wrapped in a blanket. His sister approached him with a serious expression, her figure smoothly curved by the moonlight. She clearly noticed something unusual about her brother. This could be seen in her suddenly widened eyes and quiet sigh of surprise. On the hero's back, revealed by the blanket, a magical symbol was emblazoned. The symbol of the blue dragon. That's what she noticed, and what she spent the rest of the time thinking about. She called someone and asked an important question, noting that the curse of the dragon rune was still in effect, and the seal on the dragon's essence was intact. She added the question of why Xiao Xinyu was able to form a contract with a magical beast. It didn't make any sense. The voice on the other end calmly replied that it seemed like it was fate, and ordered to keep a close eye on him. The hero's sister confirmed the order, saying that she understood, and that everything would be done. Now Xiao Xinyu and her sister were at the Qingfeng railway station. The protagonist's family offered him a basket of salted duck eggs, asking him to take them because he loved them so much as a child. Two guys stood waiting for the train to arrive. The young man politely thanked everyone, saying that they should not see him off. He would come again during the holidays. He seated his sister on the train, telling her to sit down, and the train moved off, marking the beginning of his new journey. A few hours later, passengers were alerted to the presence of magical beasts on the railway line, and the possibility of carriage shaking. The train successfully passed the first dangerous section, and an announcement informed passengers that they were continuing on schedule. The protagonist sighed with relief, telling his sister that it was good that nothing had happened, and they were almost at Longyan City. However, soon the announcement again interrupted the peace, reporting that magical beasts, a flock of three-eyed giant monkeys, had been spotted ahead. The protagonist looked into the distance with apprehension, listening to this. The passengers began to panic. One of them exclaimed in horror what was happening. Someone else asked in despair what they should do now, and whether no one would deal with them. The panic increased when a passenger shouted for everyone to run as the animals were breaking into the carriage. The main character ordered his sister to sit still and not go out, and she asked what he was going to do. The girl fell to her knees and asked her brother to stop and not to do what he had planned. The huge beast looked straight at the main character. It was unknown what it could do to him. The hero had no plan for this situation. He had to find a way out somehow. At that moment, someone hit the thug in the face, temporarily disorienting him. The girl appeared in the aisle of the carriage and commanded imperiously that if the guy didn't want to die, it would be better to move away. It was Qin Yanzan, the daughter of the Heaven Guild leader, who spoke the name of her beast, Thunder. She added some more words to her spell and called the beast with a cry. The fox was already rushing to help, her eyes burning with red fire. A system window with information about the girl's beast appeared before the protagonist's eyes. It showed a three-tailed thunder fox of the unusual third level, with an epic bloodline of lightning and wind attributes. The passengers recognized the hunter by his spear and magical beast, asking each other if this was the daughter of the Heaven Guild leader, Qin Yanzan. Some had already started celebrating, shouting that they were saved, but the protagonist looked confident and asked if they were absolutely sure about it. He ordered everyone to quickly get out of the carriage. One of the passengers noted with alarm that the three-eyed giant apes lived in a pack. As soon as he said how it was possible that there was only one monkey, there became more of them. The protagonist, without hesitation, ordered his beast to go forward, deciding to help the girl. However, the situation quickly worsened, and the girl exclaimed in annoyance that there were so many of them. Xinyu shouted a warning towards the hunter. The boy immediately gave an order to his beast Black Fang, using the skill bonds of hell. Black Fang began his transformation. Now he was no longer a small, defenseless dog. With the help of magic, the huge monkeys were immobilized and could do nothing more. After defeating the threat together, Qin Yanzhan thanked the protagonist for his help. The young man modestly replied that any trapper would have done exactly the same. When the girl noted with slight surprise that she didn't expect that he was also a hunter, the guy became thoughtful. Then the heroine turned her attention to her beast. At that moment, the system window appeared before the protagonist's eyes again. The protagonist noticed that lately her fox has been becoming too active during battles, and then very lethargic afterwards. The girl asked him in amazement how he knew, and the young man replied that she had post-traumatic stress disorder. The girl thanked him warmly, calling him brother, and saying that upon his arrival, he would immediately begin treating her. She also realized with relief why her fox Xiao Xiao had hardly washed herself lately. She then announced with energy and enthusiasm that from now on, he was her little brother. His real sister was watching all this the whole time. She walked up to the two and stood between them. The protagonist's sister jealously declared that it was her brother. The girl looked her straight in the eyes with a little malice. trying to understand what she wanted. Qin Yunzhen asked with a slight smile if this was true. The hero's sister indignantly shouted that it was, after all, her brother. Qin Yunzhen playfully answered no. A playful argument broke out between the girls about who owned the main character, with the words that no one would ever let him go. A ceremony for first-year students was taking place in the central square of the Azure Dragon Academy. Dean of the Academy Lin Kong and Vice Dean Wang Dongsheng were present on stage to welcome the new students. The secretary asked everyone to be patient and wait for the rector. Xiao Xinyu was also here. After saying goodbye to his sister and Qin Yunzhen, the protagonist finally reached the academy. He stood among the other newcomers, full of anticipation and excitement. There was a commotion among the first-year students. A lion suddenly appeared in front of them and roared in their faces. Someone exclaimed upon seeing the purple fire lion. Someone from the crowd confirmed that Rector Su had arrived, and the crowd screamed in admiration at how cool it was. The name of Rector Su Ruyan was heard loudly and with respect. The purple lion walked, not caring about the noise around him. Then the lion, with the rector, flew up. The crowd excitedly waited to see what would happen. The rector calmly descended from her beast. At the ceremony, one of the teachers politely asked the rector to say a few words to the first-year students. The protagonist recognized her, exclaiming that this was the same woman who had defeated the shadow magic dragon back then. Rector Su Ruyan congratulated everyone on their admission to their academy. Then her expression turned serious, and she reminded the students of one important thing. She stated that in the Azure Dragon Academy, they must obey her rules. The rector emphasized that no matter whether they were from a noble family or a poor one, no one present dared to interrupt her. The rector explained the 8th rule of the academy, which dealt with conflicts that arise between students. The hero thought that the 8th rule might seem harsh, but in fact it prevents the offspring of noble families from using their power. 2 hours after the ceremony, the protagonist was heading to his class. Suddenly, someone called out to him with joyful surprise, recognizing him as Xiao Xinyu. The student behind the protagonist was whispering about him, calling him the same monster with spiritual power almost like senior disciple Ye Ningshuang. The teacher interrupted the whispering, ordering everyone to sit down and announcing that they were beginning class. He then demanded silence in the audience. He introduced himself to the students as their mentor and expressed his hope that they would all achieve great things at the Azure Dragon Academy. He began writing the lesson topic on the board while the students waited for his instructions. Chen Qingyan began the class by asking the students to open the first chapter of the Illustrated Handbook of Magical Beasts. He explained that the strength of a magical beast is determined by 2 factors. The first is the form of the beast. He listed the currently known stages from the lowest to the highest. Started with the initial form of the animals, then the mature form with a note that the term unusual level was previously used. Also a full form, as could be seen on the main character's pet. The teacher continued listing the stages. The transcendental form was also on this list. The form of the King of Beasts turned out to be final. He then moved on to the second factor, the quality of the magical beast's bloodline. He explained that according to records, the blood of magical beasts is classified from lowest to highest. Beasts with a higher pedigree can suppress those with a weaker one. He gave an example of the 5 most common attributes. While the teacher was trying to explain the topic clearly, the main character was already snoring on his desk. Chen Qingyan suddenly called out to the protagonist, ordering him to stand up. He asked him to tell him what the demonic lizard's weakness was. The curator added with a threatening tone that if he didn't know the answer, he could pack his things and get out right now. When there was no answer, he repeated his question in a raised voice. However, the main character knew the answer. The image of a lizard was already forming in his head. The demonic lizard's weakness was the poison sac under its belly. The teacher continued to test the protagonist's knowledge, asking the next question, which the young man answered confidently. Chen Qingyan then asked a hypothetical question. What should he do if he encountered a heaven-tearing demonic tiger in the wild? The protagonist gave an unexpected answer, saying that he would clamp his identification tag between his teeth and hide somewhere in the shadows. The teacher asked again in surprise why, and the students also looked at him in surprise. The youth explained that the heaven-tearing demon tiger was a magical creature at the Beast King stage. This answer left the teacher and the whole class in shock. Teacher Chen Qingyan was impressed and said that this was beyond praise. He noted that he asked questions from subsequent editions of the textbook, and asked how the young man could know the answers, banging the table in the process. The protagonist simply answered because he had already studied them. Whispers began in the class, with some students indignantly asking how they were supposed to keep up with him. The teacher calmed the class down by ordering them to engage in self-study. Then he called the hero to come out. The young man apologized to the teacher, promising not to sleep in class anymore. The curator said that this was not the issue. The teacher was amazed to see that he had learned the entire theory course in just half a lesson. The boy said that the instructor explained everything perfectly. Chen Qingyan brushed off the flattery, deciding that since the student had learned all the theory, it was time for him to move on to more advanced materials. The teacher handed him a pass to the Azure Dragon Academy library, which had his name, gender, and age written on it. He explained that with this pass he could freely visit the library and borrow books for free. Then he told him to go, because the curator had nothing more to teach the guy. The protagonist headed to the library of the Azure Dragon Academy. One very informative book was in the hands of the main character. There was a calm in the library which was soon disturbed. A group of students, led by an arrogant young man named Wang Yan, the son of the vice dean, burst into the reading room. He loudly declared that today this library belonged to him. He ordered all the guys to go out. Then, with a lewd grin, he added that the girls could stay and study together. One of the girls cried out in fear, asking Wang Yan to let them go. The protagonist slammed his book shut and said, "When will this guy shut up?" The next moment, the book flew into the impudent fellow's head. Wang Yan angrily asked who dared to do this. His henchman said that this guy clearly did not know his place. The main character, looking straight at Wang Yan, said that he was bullying girls, and that he had no conscience at all. The girl quietly warned the protagonist that he had better leave, explaining that he was the son of the vice dean, Wang Dongsheng. Xiao Xinyu commented, "So that's why he's so impudent, his daddy is the vice dean." Wang Yan contemptuously ordered the protagonist to fall to his knees and apologize. The young man defiantly replied that he could dream about it. Then there was a sound of impact and the impudent fellow howled in pain. Wang Yan's henchman anxiously asked him how he was, if everything was okay with him. Wang Yan himself, rising with difficulty, hissed at the main character. "Does he even understand who he is?" He asked threateningly if the hero really thought he could cope with the consequences. Wang Yan shouted in anger that he would show him who the master of the Azure Dragon Academy was. Someone who approached these guys calmly noticed what an arrogant tone they had. "This is the rector." She added that she didn't even know that he was the one in charge here. Wang Yan was surprised to think how Principal Su had arrived so quickly. She reminded that since a conflict had arisen between them, it should be resolved as stated in the 8th article of the Academy's charter. The students hurried to the arena, saying that they could not miss the upcoming event. Some were worried about the protagonist, asking if Xiao Xinyu had a chance. The teacher quietly wished him not to let them down. In the arena, the referee announced that the fight would soon begin and ordered the fighters to get ready. Wang Yan again declared that he would show him what happens to those who dare to go against him. Before the fight, the protagonist suggested that Wang Yan simply apologize. The enemy clearly didn't like this, but he was able to simply remain silent in response. The referee announced the start of the fight. It was supposed to begin in good weather. Wang Yan commanded his beast to attack by shouting forward. Then he commanded it to use the ice spear skill. His beast arose from the magical symbols drawn on the floor. At that moment, the main character saw a system window with information about the enemy's beast. It was a 6-fingered ice leopard of the initial form of the first stage, with a legendary bloodline and attributes of ice and wind. The window showed 2 skills, Deep Freeze and Ice Squall, as well as Affection 72. The hero defiantly declared that it was now his turn. The protagonist summoned his beast by loudly pronouncing its name. The appearance of Hellstorm Wolf caused a stir among the audience. They said that this beast of Xiao Xinyu looked very impressive. From the faculty podium, Principal Su Ruyan watched the proceedings closely. She said that Xiao Xinyu's magical beast looked unusual, and that she had never seen anything like it before. The rector objected that it had always been believed that he simply had no path of evolution. However, Wang Yan was not impressed, and said with disdain that such showiness would not frighten him. He commanded his beast to use the skills Ice Flame and Deep Freeze. In response, the protagonist ordered his beast Black Fang to make rapid dashes. With this, the protagonist's beast rushed along its path at incredible speed. The enemy leopard was also determined, and, based on visual inspection, did not appear to be particularly strong. Both were furious and sharpened their fangs. Xinyu's beast was the opposite of its rival. It used fire. The curator commented that the hellish storm wolf is a magical beast with attributes of fire and wind, and the 6-legged leopard is of wind and ice. He suggested that, judging by everything, the main character would not be able to overcome the advantage of the elements. Meanwhile, Wang Yan declared with cruel confidence that he would destroy the protagonist's beast. He began to activate his skill by shouting, "Ice Flame," to activate it. Wang Yan commanded his beast to use the Ice Flurry skill. Ice began to cover the part of the arena that the enemy had told them to attack. It all looked as if he was telling the truth. The beast sank into the ice flows, showing no signs of struggle or desire to escape. Wang Yan laughed loudly, anticipating victory. His words were interrupted by a promise that the enemy's beast would simply freeze to death. From the podium, Principal Su watched the proceedings with interest, wondering what Xiao Xinyu would do. The teachers, along with the main character's supervisor, stood frowning, clearly dissatisfied with this outcome. The hero confidently asked if the enemy was sure of what he said. The protagonist ordered his beast Black Fang to use the skill Hunt in the dark. The beast suddenly began to evaporate from the ice. Suddenly, the Hellstorm Wolf disappeared from sight. The teacher and the rector realized what was going on, the attribute of darkness. It turns out that Xiao Xinyu's beast has 3 of them. Wang Yan screamed in panic. He didn't understand where the dog had gone. One of the observers realized that the protagonist's beast had become a shadow, and noted that it was no surprise that the ice could not hold it. Wang Yan didn't expect the dog to appear so suddenly. His leopard noticed his opponent and parried the attack he wanted to make on his master. The main character said with approval, "Let him show what he is capable of." Meanwhile, the hero gave the next order to the Black Fang, the Claw of Oblivion. Suddenly the leopard missed the attack from the side. The dog caught him. Wang Yan shouted in panic at his leopard, ordering him to fight back and not just stand there. However, it was already too late. The rector was observing this and understood the inevitability of the situation. The system window explained that Claw of Oblivion is a dark attribute skill that causes paralysis for 3 seconds when it hits a target. The main character calmly said it was time to finish. He gave the final command to the Black Fang, a hellish howl. Hell's howl stunned the enemy beast. The wave of energy was able to knock him off his feet, and the leopard could no longer resist. Now this beast lay motionless. The judge approached the main character, raised his hand up and said that he had won. The crowd in the stands erupted in cheers and enthusiastically shouted the name of the winner, Xiao Xinyu. Wang Yan was shocked and couldn't believe what was happening, muttering that it was impossible. The protagonist calmly approached the defeated enemy and said that he had lost. The principal reminded Wang Yan that according to school rules, he must apologize properly. She added coldly that it was time to stop this farce. Defeated and humiliated, Wang Yan was forced to mutter an apology through his teeth. Then he angrily hissed at the protagonist, threatening that he would still pay for this. But Wang Yan had to bow before the winner and stand like that for a while. Su Ruyan addressed the winner and said that it was a wonderful duel. He was the second student who impressed her. She also announced that she was looking forward to his performance at the freshman ranking tournament, which would take place in 3 days. The protagonist politely thanked the rector for the praise, then curiously asked who was the first person to impress her. Principal Su replied that she was a genius girl with a spiritual power level above 1,000. The young man muttered to himself that he remembered her again. They had talked about her during the entrance exams. The rector stated that she knew how to appreciate talent and therefore offered him a spatial ring as a reward. She explained that you can store anything in it. The system window described that the spatial ring is a high-tech piece of equipment created to store various things. The protagonist accepted the award with gratitude, saying that he would then gladly accept this award. When I took this ring from the rector's hands, I thanked her again. The protagonist was already standing at the gates of the Azure Dragon Academy. He thought that his sister was probably already worried, and he needed to return home as soon as possible. On the way home, he had a small incident and ran into a girl. However, she quickly shook herself off and said in response to the guy's question that she was fine. The hero asked her to look around next time and said that it was time for her to run home. But the girl immediately added with sad eyes that she had nowhere to go and asked if he could give her shelter. The protagonist was perplexed. At this time, they approached the family dormitory of the academy. There they were met by his sister, who, upon seeing the girl, was horrified and accused her brother of kidnapping the child. My sister said indignantly that she had just arrived and already this had happened. The protagonist tried to explain everything, saying that the young man decided to bring her here to help her overcome her fear. The girl timidly approached her sister, Ruo Shui, asking if she could stay with them and saying that she did not want to return home. The sister softened and agreed to let her stay, but her face became serious again. She strictly ordered her brother to remember that he should not date a girl from the Ye family. There was a crowd of people at the gates of the Azure Dragon Academy. The main character muttered something to himself about Yi's family. One student asked what he was muttering. Then he said that Teacher Chen announced that in this lesson, they would be determining roles on the battlefield. He asked if the main character knew what it was. He apologized, saying that he was lost in thought. He asked again if it was about roles in the group. Xiu explained that hunters most often work in teams, and their roles and responsibilities are different, with the marksman possessing long-range combat skills. The mage has well-developed crowd control skills, which give him a significant advantage in team combat. The tank has strong defense and skills that restore health. Basically, he is a shield for the rest of the team. The assassin is endowed with high maneuverability and the ability to finish off enemies. His task is to attack those who can barely stand on their feet. And support is famous for its enhancing skills, which impose a multitude of positive effects on all team members. The student exclaimed in admiration. Then he asked Brother Xiao what role his storm butterfly was best suited for. At this moment, Professor Chen came out and reprimanded Wu Shengyu, telling him to stop chatting in class, and the student immediately apologized. The teacher announced that they must now call their animals to take the test according to their ordinal numbers. Then he started to announce the results. Song Hu's beast has strong defense, so he is now a tank. Storm Butterfly, Wu Shengyu has a wide area skill based on the water element. Teacher Chen Qingyan called out the next name to take the test, and the protagonist stepped forward. The first test was to check the beast's attack potential, and the teacher asked if the student was ready to begin. The young man nodded with absolute confidence, his gaze firm and focused. Without wasting a second, he gave a clear command to his Hellstorm Wolf, ordering it to use the Hell Howl skill. A powerful sound wave, imbued with the power of darkness and fire, crashed down on the test target. The measurement system responded immediately, recording not just a successful hit, but a critical strike of triple force. The result caused a strong reaction among the students. One of the students, amazed by the results, exclaimed. Teacher Chen explained that the attack power of novice hunters usually ranges from 500 to 1,500 units. The protagonist approached the teacher, suggesting that since he had passed the attack test with such a result, the role of the killer seemed suitable for him. Teacher Chen interrupted him, telling him to continue, and with interest in his voice, the teacher added that let's see what his potential really is. Then the attack range test began. The protagonist again commanded his beast to use Hell Howl. Black Fang easily withstood the powerful attack of the teacher's own ice-armored turtle. Then, in the control test, the protagonist used the skill Hell's Bonds, demonstrating the ability to bind opponents en masse. Next came the enhancement test, which revealed that Black Fang was generating a powerful aura. The class was thrown into confusion as Xiao Xinyu excelled in every category and was suited to almost any role. Teacher Chen, looking at this incredible data, began to talk about the existence of a special sixth role. The sixth role was called the Universal One, and it suited the main character perfectly. One of the students asked Teacher Chen again what exactly this special role meant. The teacher explained that this is the name given to a hunter whose summoned creature is equally suitable for all the main roles. He confirmed that Xiao Xinyu was the only all-rounder in their group, and such a hunter was given a special role. This news naturally pleased Xiao Xinyu very much. Hearing this, his classmates surrounded the protagonist, admiringly asking how he became so cool. The main character, slightly embarrassed, laughed it off, saying that he wasn't that cool. Teacher Chen, however, cooled the class's ardor, warning them not to rejoice prematurely. He explained that universals are rare, but they do exist, and the data on their flow has not yet been fully processed. For example, in the second group there were Ye Ningxuang and Han Tianjun, and in the third there were Murun Qiliang and Li Xuancheng. He encouraged everyone to continue to try hard. A little later, after the end of classes, the protagonist thought about buying some supplements for Black Fang. On the way from the academy, the main character was stopped by a group of suspicious individuals. One of them called out to him rudely, asking where he was going in such a hurry. The young man asked warily what they needed. They were all negatively disposed towards him. The leader replied, "Doesn't he know about their Black Tiger Guild?" In response, the master of these bandits told him not to talk to him, but to simply break his leg. His henchman, with icy calm, laid out the essence of the complaint, the supposed disrespect for their master. The protagonist was unable to contain his indignation at the blatant injustice. He shouted out a sharp reproach, accusing the attackers of lacking honor due to their overwhelming numerical and qualitative superiority. His words, however, found no response, except for a caustic grin from one of the opponents, which only emphasized the hopelessness of their situation. One of the gang stepped forward decisively, calling on his fighting spirit, Thunder Tiger, for help, which became the signal for the fight to begin. However, the true turning point in the battle came when a new, far more formidable defender, the Beast, appeared out of nowhere. The group ordered this beast to immediately attack the hero. Suddenly, Black appeared, and without giving them time to recover, he pounced on the opponents with a swift and merciless attack. Silence hung in the air, broken only by heavy breathing and the echoes of the devastation that had just occurred. The shock of Black Fang's appearance began to dissipate, giving way to the usual arrogance. After all, Lei and his men were the elite of the Black Teeter Guild, 3rd and 4th levels, which again gave them false confidence. Brother Lei looked at Xiao Xinyu's spirit beast with disdain, and defiantly declared that a creature in its mature stage could not resist him. As the Thunder Tiger had reached full power, his rhetorical question was full of arrogance and denial of the power he had just seen. This whole show of bravado was a last-ditch attempt to push away the thought of defeat from a first-level weakling. However, the unwavering, gigantic figure of Black Fang and the icy calm of Xiao Xinyu himself turned these words into empty words. Despite this, neither side was going to give in. Each proudly stood their ground. Each of the gang had already summoned their beasts, and it seemed that the fight was definitely not on equal terms. One of the bandits was surprised. Apparently someone else had joined their showdown. Or rather, she joined. It was Qin. She said that she was always interested in who would win, the Black Tiger or her guild heaven. The main character was initially wary of her, because he didn't recognize her at first glance. As soon as he realized who she was, he shouted joyfully, calling her Sister Qin. Now the bandits were shaking with fear. They understood that their situation now was not the best, since they were surrounded by the Heaven Guild. Sister Qin noted that if she had not passed by, she would never have known that the respected Lei was going to commit reprisal against her dear little brother. These words plunged the bandit into complete confusion, and he stuttered and tried to object, hinting at the discrepancy between their statuses. In response, Qin Yanran firmly and loudly announced to everyone present that Xiao Xinyu was her sworn brother. She made it clear that her guild, Heaven, which ranked second in the Longyan City's Beast Hunter rankings, would not allow him to be offended. Quietly ordering Xiao Xinyu not to get involved in the conflict, she turned to face the Black Tiger Guild. The gang members listened to these words, already preparing a plan for retreat. After all, the Heaven Guild was not only larger in numbers, but also in strength. The girl's figure seemed to grow as she declared that anyone who wanted to hurt her brother would have to deal with her personally first. The guild member, completely disheartened, began to fawningly make excuses to Miss Chin. In a desperate attempt to save his own skin, he immediately pointed the finger at that same young Master Wang, claiming that he was the one who hired them to kill Xiao Xinyu. Receiving a silent but eloquent look from Qin Yanran that clearly indicated what he should do, he hurriedly nodded. He immediately switched sides, ordering his own men to teach their recent employer, Mr. Wang, a lesson. The mercenaries rushed to carry out the order without hesitation, and Mr. Wang's desperate cries of betrayal were drowned out by the sounds of beatings. After the commotion died down, Qin Yanran gently asked Xiao Xinyu how he managed to encounter such people. After the incident was over, Qin Yanran brought Xiao Xinyu to her Heaven Guild to show off her capabilities. She then began the tour, showing off the recreation area with golf and a sauna for relaxing after assignments. She led us into a spacious conference room for important meetings and planning. She then showed the medical area with advanced equipment and a wide range of medicines. And finally, she spoke with particular pride about the team of highly qualified animal doctors. Xiao Xinyu, impressed by what he saw, approached Qin Yanran with a request to join the heavens and become a beast doctor. However, before she could answer, her aunt, the deputy guild leader, whose surname was Liu, approached them. Upon learning of the young man's request, the woman rejected it with cold arrogance and mockery. Qin Yanran decisively introduced Xiao Xinyu to her aunt, reminding her that it was this same sworn brother who helped her on the train back then. At this moment, a guild employee panicked and informed Deputy Liu that several seriously injured beasts had just been delivered. He explained that there was a catastrophic shortage of personnel to treat them, to which the deputy, maintaining a semblance of calm, ordered that assistance be requested from other branches. Despite her aunt's cold refusal, Qin Yanran insistently asked her to trust Xiao Xinyu at this critical moment. The situation in the medical area quickly escalated. Panicked staff reported that the seriously wounded animals were bleeding heavily. At this moment, Xiao Xinyu, seeing the despair and hopelessness of the situation, resolutely stepped forward and loudly declared that he would help. His voice rang with such confidence that even Deputy Liu froze for a moment. Without wasting a second, Xiao Xinyu, without waiting for official permission, rushed into the epicenter of chaos. The arriving employee commandingly demanded that the scurrying employees step aside and make way for him to reach the operating room. An atmosphere of despair reigned in the operating room. A huge horn steel, which was in the third stage of its mature form, was bleeding from a wound. Conventional methods, clamps, and medications proved useless against a special poison that interfered with regeneration and prevented the blood from clotting. The doctors threw up their hands in helplessness. At this critical moment, Xiao Xinyu carefully examined the wound. The protagonist analyzed the situation, calmly thinking about his plan. He told the owner of the hornbill that he could help eliminate the problem of greenish mucus. However, there was one catch, which meant that the method would be non-standard and would require special conditions. The owner of the wounded animal, realizing that he had no choice, desperately asked Xiao Xinyu to help his dog. Xiao Xinyu gave clear instructions on how to prepare the medicine, ordering him to mix the heavenly herb and purple crystal flower. One of the doctors present objected with horror that all of the ingredients listed were highly toxic. To this, Xiao Xinyu imperiously demanded that the medicine be prepared immediately according to his prescription, declaring that otherwise they would only be wasting time. The beast's owner, seeing the staff's hesitation, abruptly ordered them to stop standing and do as Xiao Xinyu said. The staff complied, hastily prepared the medicine, and within 5 minutes everything was ready for the decisive stage of treatment. The medicine prepared according to a non-standard recipe was given to Xiao Xinyu, a risky method based on the principle that cures and the use of toxic ingredients. The protagonist, without a doubt, began to apply the mixture to the hornbill's wound. The beast roared from the sharp, unpleasant sensations. The bleeding was stopped, and the natural healing process began. The owner of the animal, not hiding his tears of relief, joyfully hugged his pet named Sharik. Deputy Liu swallowed her pride and had to admit that she had jumped to conclusions and praised his skills highly. She formally invited him to join the Heaven Guild for a special position as a pharmacist, to which Xiao Xinyu readily agreed. Later, when he returned home, he explained to his sister the reason for the delay, saying that he had signed an employment contract with the guild. The sister, feigning offense, suggested that her brother had completely forgotten about her, having found himself a rich woman, to which Xiao Xinyu sincerely objected. He wanted to get through to his sister by loudly explaining to her that everything was wrong. When a little girl curiously asked if the profession of a pharmacist was edible, he explained with a smile that this was not entirely true. However, now, working in heaven, he would earn good money to provide for them, and this made both of them very happy. At this time, an oppressive atmosphere reigned in the room of their offender, young Master Wang. Wang himself, beaten and humiliated, shouted Xiao Xinyu's name in rage. His father, an influential man surnamed Wang, was furious when he learned of what had happened. It was an unimaginable insult to him that his son had lost to some insignificant weakling and country bumpkin from a small town. He furiously scolded his son, declaring that he had disgraced not only himself, but their entire family. In an attempt to somehow justify himself, young Wang muttered in a trembling voice that Xiaoxinyu's spirit beast possessed 3 attributes at once. But the father hinted to his son that if Xiaoxinyu accidentally died at the hands of a magical beast, it would have nothing to do with them. Meanwhile, a new test was announced at the academy for all newly arrived students. The teacher said it was supposed to be broadcast in real time. Each student was given special bracelets that recorded the number of creatures killed and kept a log of combat actions. A scoring system was announced. For the kill, the test was supposed to be not only a test of strength for Xiaoxinyu, but also a potential trap. Before the start of the exam, the deputy rector announced the results of the entrance tests and named this year's particularly gifted students. To everyone's surprise, there were 2 generalists in the first class, Murong Yangshuo, the eldest son of the famous Murong family, also his sister Murong Xinshin. The third universal driver, but already in the 3rd class, was named Xiaoxinyu. The presence of 2 representatives of one of the 4 great dynasties of trappers spoke of the exceptional level of recruitment. The live broadcast of the test from Yunyuan Mountain has begun. Host Yanshu welcomed the audience and immediately engaged them in discussion. The rector asked the deputy, whose surname was Wang, how many magical beasts he thought Xiaoxinyu could kill. Deputy Wang answered skeptically that no more than 50, and even then with some reserve. However, the teacher present in the studio did not agree with this assessment. Considering his talent, he would be able to kill 80 animals. In response to this, the rector asked a provocative question with a smile. What if both experts are wrong? The test officially began, and the newcomers entered the territory of Yunyuan Mountain. Less than half an hour later, the first results began to come in. A 2nd-grade student named Wang Lin successfully killed a short-tailed bear. Soon the total number of magical beasts killed exceeded 10, and then 20. However, the real test for all participants was a special opponent, the white griffin. The presenter explained to the audience that this was the only animal in this test that had achieved a complete, perfect form. His unique ability, Spatial Dash, not only allowed him to close the distance to his target, but also strengthened any attack. The white griffin continued to demonstrate its strength, easily defeating even beasts such as the silver-fanged snake. Meanwhile, while his sister was entering the battle, Murong Yangshuo was calmly extracting a magic core from another defeated beast. His counter already showed impressive figures, about 50 kills. However, the host turned the viewer's attention to his sister, Murong Xinshin. Her war beast was revealed to be something of an unusual bone-winged wyvern with a legendary lineage. Moreover, the presenter noted with surprise that this was the only non-living animal in the entire test, which made it even more unique. Murong Xingxin entered into a fight with a formidable opponent, a bloodthirsty lion, a 2nd-stage mature magical beast. However, when faced with her bone-winged wyvern, even this powerful beast was doomed. If she had defeated him, her kill count would have reached 51, allowing her to overtake her brother. However, the next piece of news surprised everyone, including Murong Yangshuo himself, who noted with bewilderment that someone had gotten ahead of his sister. Just a moment ago, everything indicated that Murong Yangshuo's sister was destined to win. She controlled her special beast. The bone-winged wyvern carried out all of its mistress's instructions brilliantly. The girl herself was already watching the fight with a relaxed expression, realizing that she had almost overcome this challenge. But suddenly a strange voice was heard, which spoke of the Black Blade, ordering him to go forward. At that moment, a new attack appeared on the screen, the Claws of the Underworld, marking the appearance of a new leader. To everyone's complete surprise, the new leader turned out to be Xiaoxinyu. It turned out that he was using a clever tactic of sneak attacks. While mighty beasts like the bloodthirsty lion fought in full view, Xiaoxinyu acted from the shadows, dealing decisive blows to the weakened ones. His meteoric rise in the ratings sparked a furious reaction, with the host enthusiastically announcing the unexpected turn of events and praising him. However, the test did not end there. Soon a new, even more dangerous enemy appeared, the 3-eyed magic ant. Even through the screen, one can sense the danger emanating from this creature. The main character felt it in reality. As Xinshin examined the new opponent, the host wondered who would dare to challenge him. Despite the imminent danger, Xiaoxinyu was the first to attack, commanding his Black Fang to use the Fire Howl ability. As the presenter explained, the 3-eyed ant is known for its extremely strong shell. However, the Hellwolf's fire had the unique property of ignoring armor, allowing it to deal damage. Without wasting any time, Xiaoxinyu ordered Black Fang to finish off the enemy. At that very moment, Murong Xinshin decided to join the fight, seeing this as an opportunity to defeat the powerful beast. Murong Xinshin, in an effort to intercept her prey, commanded her Bonewing Wyvern to use sound waves. The purpose of this maneuver was to immediately unleash her own powerful attack, Necrotic Flame, and gain the kill points herself. She saw a magical artifact lying on the ground. I immediately reached out to take it for myself. Xiao Xinyu, watching this, remarked sarcastically that he didn't think his classmate was so vindictive. The situation escalated to the limit, with both opponents' scores showing 51. However, a direct clash never took place. Murong Xingxin adopted a different, more insidious tactic. She began to systematically intercept Xiao Xinyu's prey. In the last half hour of the test, she firmly secured first place, tracking down the monsters that Xiao Xinyu found. She killed them right under his nose, taking away his points. It seemed that wherever he went, his vengeful rival immediately appeared next to him. The host stated that there was less than an hour left until the end of the challenge, and the question of who would ultimately win remained open. The tension reached its peak. Murong Xinxin justified her actions with a proud and hurt expression. The audience was divided. Some admired Murong Xinxin's strength, comparing her to Icarus. At this moment, Xiao Xinyu said that he would not give in to her anymore, and the host delightedly announced that Xiao Xinyu had been holding back all this time. With less than half an hour left, the question of whether Xiao Xinyu would be able to return to first place hung in the air. In the remaining time, an incredible race unfolded. Xiao Xinyu began to target the flying magical beasts. This tactic worked, and he began to rapidly score points. Murong Xinxin, realizing that she was losing, could only call him a scoundrel in anger, to which he replied that this was the only word she knew. With less than a minute left, Xiao Xinyu confidently declared that she could no longer defeat him. The commentator stated that, unless something unexpected happens, Xiao Xinyu will take first place. The audience stood frozen in anticipation of the final result. However, at the very last moment, something unexpected and catastrophic happened. An incredibly powerful enemy appeared in the testing area, right in the path of Xiao Xinyu and Murong Xinxin. His appearance was so sudden and unnatural for the rookie testing area that it immediately caused panic. This new level of threat instantly erased all previous disputes about primacy, calling into question not victory, but survival itself. Perhaps this was the very accident that the Wang family had planned to arrange. However, the real cause of the disaster soon became clear. The appearance of the third form beast caused horror in her, who realized the full danger of the situation. This beast was now rushing straight towards the main character. The guy was now thinking about what he could do in this situation. But he didn't have time to think of anything. He and his dog were thrown back several meters. The girl was worried about her opponent. She shouted his name. She knelt down and carefully began to crawl to the edge of the abyss where Xiao was hanging with the animal. The beast Xinxin protected them from the newly arrived enemy. Mr. Wang Yan, Xiao Xinyu's main offender, came out of hiding, and everything became clear. He apparently used his connections to arrange Xiao Xinyu's accident, and when he saw it, he indignantly called out his name. The branch that Xiao Xinyu was holding onto fell down, along with him. Murong Xingxin screamed out Xiao Xinyu's name in horror. Teacher Chen, who was watching the broadcast, jumped up from his seat, determined to personally go and rescue his students. However, the rector of the academy, maintaining an outward calm, stopped him, stating that as rector she would not allow anything to happen to them. The teacher decided to activate the emergency rescue program through the security service. Meanwhile, Wang Yan's father, observing the panic he had caused, smugly declared that he was a genius, proud of his cunning plan. He figured that a little trick involving throwing up a third form beast would allow him to easily wipe them off the face of the earth without leaving a trace. The situation at the scene was critical. His first thought was that Wang Yan, after what he had done, would definitely pay. The protagonist, having come to his senses in some shelter at the foot of the mountain, was amazed to realize that he was alive. At that moment, he turned around and let out a furious cry, full of pain and anger, directed at his spirit beast. It became clear that Black Fang had taken the brunt of the attack while defending them, and had suffered heavy damage. Xiao Xinyu, showing concern, handed the beast some healing liquid. He said that it would make him feel better. Soon the sky became cloudy. The weather worsened and it started to rain. Xiao Xinyu suggested finding a place to take shelter from the bad weather. To catch their breath and treat their wounds, Xiao Xinyu and Black Fang found temporary shelter in a cave. The hero, looking at the rain outside, thoughtfully asked when it would end. Xiao Xinyu expressed concern for his sister, who was probably very worried about him. He also remembered Murong Xinxin, who wanted to help him until the very end. These reflections were interrupted by a sudden movement. Xiao Xinyu whispered anxiously that there seemed to be someone else in the cave besides them. This someone grabbed the main character by the throat and began to strangle him. She coldly threatened that since they had seen the Empress's face, she must now kill them. The guy tried with all his might to get out of this grip. It was a nine-tailed fox of incredible power, at the first stage of the Beast King form and possessing a mythical bloodline. However, to her surprise, Xiao Xinyu not only wasn't afraid, but also seemed to have recognized her true identity, which made her wary. She noted that she did not expect that some person knew who she was. Xiao Xinyu, despite his grave condition, retorted that since she was wounded by a purebred dragon, she would die in literally half an hour. This statement made Lisa think, and after assessing the danger of the situation, she came to the conclusion that such a person definitely could not be left alive. She asked him in amazement how he knew this. Inwardly, he noted that this seemed to be his chance. Using his magic, he was able to escape from the girl's grip, blinding her with his power. Despite Lisa's confusion, Xiao Xinyu, using his abilities, was able to thoroughly diagnose her condition. He said that the wound inflicted by the pure-blooded dragon caused its energy to penetrate her body, damaging her heart vessels. He noted to himself that he didn't understand where the purebred dragon, thought to be extinct, had come from. But first he needed to help her condition. He then addressed Lisa directly, claiming that he could cure her. The fox still despised him as a pathetic one-star trapper. She reminded him with disbelief and fury that these wounds were inflicted by a purebred dragon, implying that they were beyond his capabilities. To this, Xiao Xinyu confidently replied that it was not that difficult. However, he put forward a condition, offering a deal, treatment in exchange for guarantees of their safety. Xiao Xinyu's proposal was even more daring than just a security guarantee. This demand enraged her. She shouted insults at him, calling him a bastard and declaring that he was finished, ready to kill him on the spot. Xiao Xinyu, however, remained icy calm and reiterated his intention. The proud nine-tailed fox found herself in a hopeless situation. Xiao Xinyu pinpointed the essence of her problem. The dragon poison had already penetrated her heart. She struggled internally with humiliation, wondering if she would really have to bow down to this man. However, her desire to live and, more importantly, her unfulfilled mission outweighed her pride. She thought that she couldn't die now. I tried to fight myself with all my last strength. After all, she still needs to complete her sister's task. After all her thoughts, she let the guy go, sighing with annoyance. With bitterness and resignation to fate, she was finally forced to say that she agreed to these conditions. Once the agreement was reached, a magical contractual bond was formed between them. Xiao Xinyu solemnly announced, injuring his finger in the process, that from now on, everything would change. Zan ended his ritual by saying that she now belonged to him, Xiao Xinyu. Then, with slight surprise or understanding, she whispered his name to herself again, only having learned what the guy's name was. Without further ado, the hero took action and began to undress, which caused shock and indignation in the nine-tailed fox. Xiao Xinyu calmly replied, "It's to cure." The protagonist asked how else he could give her his blood if not like this. He calmly suggested that she drink it directly. The fox was shocked and categorically refused this method, considering it unacceptable. Xiao Xinyu explained that his blood had special properties, and would be able to protect the fox's heart from the dragon's poison. Through a flash of contract energy, the nine-tailed fox, still in disbelief, asked if he could heal her now. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, and that there was no turning back, Lisa, with a heavy heart, was forced to obey. As Xiao Xinyu's blood began to act, Lisa felt her heart, which had just recently been pierced by pain and poison, begin to ache. It began to fill with a previously unknown strength, warmth, and vital energy, indicating the beginning of the healing process. Xiao Xinyu explained that this was a temporary measure that would stabilize her condition for a while. Reluctantly but obeying the agreement, the fox called himself Dailu. However, her submission was superficial. She immediately went on the offensive, demanding an explanation from her new master. Her main question, full of suspicion and curiosity, was how he knew that her wound was inflicted by a purebred dragon. This question touched on the very essence of Xiao Xinyu's unusual knowledge and abilities. The hero did not hide the truth. He explained that his eyes changed 2 months ago after dragon blood got into them. Now, when he concentrates, he sees in front of him an information panel with detailed data on any animal. It was thanks to this ability that he learned about her injury. Dailu, having studied his eyes, noted with amazement that they were very similar to the legendary eyes of the demon god, which were rumored. These rumors are that they can see all the information about any animal. She confirmed that his eyes had most likely changed under the influence of dragon blood and became exactly these eyes. Internally, she weighed the pros and cons of this situation, but came to the conclusion that since he was her master, it might even be for the best. She explained that what he was seeing was simply a visualization of the abilities of a legendary and very real force in their world, and he was very lucky. The protagonist was surprised. Aren't the eyes of a demonic god a system? Dailu, hearing the word system, dismissed the idea with a sneer, saying that he was not a hero from a book and that it was time for him to stop reading so much fantasy. However, Xiao Xinyu still had doubts. If this was just a visualization of the ability, then why did he sometimes hear that mysterious voice? He said that he first heard that mysterious voice after the Shadow Dragon's attack. The voice pointed him to a certain crystal, claiming that it would awaken the ancestral blood of his spirit beast, the Storm Dog, and allow him to be reborn. Following this instruction, Xiao Xinyu used the crystal, and his beast actually evolved into a hellish storm wolf. It was an undeniable fact that the voice possessed real knowledge and the ability to influence reality. Now Xiao Xinyu was wondering with interest when he would hear that voice again, realizing that there might be a demonic god hiding behind those eyes. Suddenly their solitude and reflection in the cave was disturbed. Someone got inside. The newcomer watched the boys sitting in the cave. When the terrible beast began to approach them, Dailu shouted at the guy not to stand there like a pillar, and to do something. The main character still stood there, perplexed as to how this beast had managed to find them. Now they were no longer alone in this cave, as ironic as it may sound. A loud question thundered, echoing off the walls of the cave: the lava tiger. Xiao Xinyu admitted with alarm that he didn't expect to be found even here, in such a remote place. He obviously realized who exactly was following him, and this caused him serious concern. The hero clearly understood that a confrontation with this creature was an extremely dangerous and difficult matter. A tense atmosphere filled the cave, broken only by the sound of the enemy's approaching footsteps. The beast came closer and closer, accompanying its steps with a mad growl. The guy was terribly scared and couldn't say a word. Despite his still-healed wounds, Dailu's pride and rage boiled over. She couldn't accept the fact that some creature dared to growl at her, even in her current state. Determined to defend her dignity and perhaps her new master, she steeled herself and prepared for confrontation. Now the girl was in a fierce confrontation with the lion. It seemed like her strength was running out, but she didn't give up. She shouted at the beast, asking how it dared to attack the Empress. After these words, the beast instantly turned to stone, and the girl remained lying on the ground, watching the outcome of her actions. After a short but tense confrontation, the threat passed. Xiao Xinyu let out a sigh of relief, thinking that they seemed to be safe now. However, his condition suddenly worsened and he felt unwell, probably from the effects of the treatment and loss of blood. At that moment, his consciousness left the physical world and plunged into inner space. There, in the depths of his mind, a mysterious entity appeared that called itself the Demon's Eye. She greeted him, saying that the guy is finally here, Xiao Xinyu. He asked where they were and how he got there. The entity replied that it was his own consciousness. The guy thought that all this was awakened thanks to that blood. However, this entity responded that it could help the hero achieve greatness. Then the guy, analyzing the situation, realized that the system panels were also his doing. Xiao Xinyu continued the conversation. The Demon's Eye replied that while he was unconscious, he decided to meet him. Xiao Xinyu asked in surprise if he had lost consciousness, and managed to ask at the last moment when they would meet again. When Xiao Xinyu came to, he found himself not in a cave, but in a hospital room. Rector Su and the boy's supervisor were near his bed. He apologized for making them worry. The last thing the hero remembered was the cave. The rector explained that the rescue team found him unconscious nearby, and also mentioned that the lava tiger's body had been discovered. Xiao Xinyu, remaining cautious, replied that as the rector himself said, he was unconscious, hinting that he knew nothing. This aroused the rector's suspicions, but she did not insist. She asked the guy not to worry. The academy had to conduct a thorough investigation. The teacher explained that he and Murong Shinshin set a new academy record in the Yunnan Mountain test, so the protagonist needed to focus more on his recovery. After the rector left, only Xiao Xinyu and the nine-tailed fox remained in the room. He noted with a slight smile that he had been wondering where she had disappeared to. She reminded him that he had sacrificed his blood to save her, and then lost consciousness due to his wounds. She told how she saw the rescue team, so she hid. This team came just in time, so she made this decision, because she didn't want anyone to see her. She clarified whether the fall from the cliff was really an accident. However, Xiao categorically rejected the accident theory, with authority and cold fury in his voice. He declared that he knew who had done it, and promised that he would not get off so easily this time. Wang Lin's father was sitting in the Wang family's study. Wang Lin himself came running to him in tears. He wanted to tell his father that something terrible had happened. He showed him his phone, where the news about Xiao Xinyu being found was posted. Wang Yan tried to explain that since he survived, he would not leave them alone, and that the Heaven Guild was now on his side. However, Father Wang said that there was no evidence against them at the moment. When his son asked what they should do now, he replied that nothing for now. He continued, saying that this business could be started. However, only on the condition that afterwards he will have to be finished off. It was already late at night. The main character was in the dormitory. Meanwhile, Xiao Xinyu received a call. This was his friend. He was sincerely glad that Xiao Xinyu was alive, admired his victory and taking first place. Xiao Xinyu found numerous messages on his phone from friends and classmates full of concern for him. His friend kept shouting into the phone that his disappearance had become the hottest topic of conversation. The freshman tournament was also postponed, which surprised the hero greatly. But the student was confident that Xiao Xinyu would still easily surpass everyone and take first place. The first-year tournament itself was the main annual event of the Azure Dragon Academy. All participants were divided into groups, and the order of matches was determined randomly. The tournament was expected to be a tense and exciting competition, with the future of every participant at stake. Fights would begin to rage throughout the arena, and the main issue would soon begin, the battle for the 3 prize places. The student who was now calling the hero told him all this with undisguised enthusiasm. Before going to bed, Xiao Xinyu's roommate once again reminded him not to be late for the tournament. Xiao Xinyu, already getting ready for bed, replied that he understood everything and wished him good night. Left alone with his thoughts, he reflected on the upcoming tournament. A good result would attract the attention of the academy and its financial support, which was extremely important for him. He also understood the key principle of a beast hunter's power. The skills of spirit beasts were directly dependent on the level of their master's spiritual energy. The academy resources he could obtain through placing high in the tournament would allow him to accelerate the development of his spiritual energy. This was critical to avoid a repeat of the situation where Dailu's skills could completely deplete his reserves. He needed her help to finally sort things out with the Wang family and protect himself and his loved ones. He was faced with the pressing question of how to increase his spiritual energy before the freshman tournament began. There was catastrophically little time, and while searching for a solution, Xiao Xinyu suddenly remembered him. This was the essence of the demon's eyes from his consciousness. He pointed out that since he had it, why not take advantage of the opportunity? The entity agreed to help, but put forward a condition. Xiao Xinyu would have to do everything to return her lost memories. Xiao Xinyu swore that he would not throw words to the wind and emphasized that they were now in the same boat. Then the demon's eye explained the rules of interaction. Only deep meditation allows one to penetrate the space of consciousness for communication. The entity then demonstrated its capabilities. Now, in addition to information about animals and disease diagnostics, a new section has appeared, a store. Through this store, Xiao Xinyu could now purchase the items he needed using points, which opened up new opportunities for him. The entity noted that the spiritual pill was exactly what he needed to give him a sharp boost before the tournament. Afterwards, the demon's eye explained how to activate the system. Just mentally say, "Divine Panel, submit to my will." The entity then asked him not to disturb her unless absolutely necessary, as she also needed time to recover. At the last moment, when the connection was already weakening, the entity asked him a quiet but meaningful question. He would not disappoint him. The main character ran out of the house, telling his sister that he was going to class. Xiao Xinyu, left alone with the precious pill, now had to decide when to use this risky tool. While Xiao Xinyu was thinking about the system and the pill, another detail on a separate piece of paper caught his attention. It had an image and information about a nine-tailed fox on it, which clearly pointed to Dela. The main character was on a remote street in his city. Xiao Xinyu directly addressed Dailu with the accusation. He asked if she had deceived him and demanded an explanation. Why didn't she tell him that the Dailu imperial family was looking for her? She calmly replied that she hadn't hidden it. Xiao Xinyu, without giving in, retorted that she was wanted by the Empress's personal decree, and that this was not some trivial matter. His voice probably sounded indignant, because he not only linked his fate with her, but also put himself and his loved ones at risk. She, with bitter irony, offered to give her to him for a reward if he regretted the agreement he had made. However, Xiao Xinyu took a deep breath and calmed down, switching to a more calm and firm tone. He reminded her that he was now her master, and expressed his desire that she trust him and no longer hide anything. These words may have made Dela think for a moment and feel a pang of guilt or surprise at his reaction. She quietly said the name of the one who declared a hunt for her, Shangguan Lan, while the girl showed him some shining object. He asked what it was, and Dailu replied with solemnity and significance that it was the greatest treasure of the dragons. Then she said dragon tier. This item had incredible value and power. She said that purebred dragons have three great treasures, the scale sword and the dragon king's whiskers. The last one is the dragon's tear. The first two are artifacts with devastating attack power that can be used in combat. However, the dragon tear is completely different. It has no combat use, but its value lies in its composition. It consists of the tears of 10,000 purebred giant dragons. This meant that its creation required incredible suffering, sacrifice, or emotion from an entire legendary race. That was why the imperial family, and Shangguan Lan in particular, were so desperate to get her back. When the interlocutor sharply asked why the dragons had recently reappeared, someone outside called out to him. Murong Yangshuo said in surprise that it was such a coincidence that the hero was here. Yangshuo thought that his sister was mistaken, and added that Xiao Xinyu seemed to have escaped from hell, and advised him to be careful. He continued angrily that from the moment the boy fell off the cliff, his sister had not eaten anything. A picture immediately appeared in my head of the young man calling his sister, saying that it was time to eat, but she refused. He said that only when she saw on TV that Xiao Xinyu was okay did she eat several servings at once. Then the girl covered her brother's mouth with her hand so that he wouldn't blurt out anything else. Xiao Xinyu, trying to calm the young man down, said that he couldn't make such a girl worry. He suggested going together since the freshman tournament would be starting soon, but the young man sharply replied that they were not that close. He also added that during the test on Mount Yunyuan, Xiao Xinyu stole his sister's monster-killing points. Xiao Xinyu asked a direct question into the void, asking why he even spoke to him. At this moment, the morning greeting for the teachers and students sounded throughout the Azure Dragon Academy. It was announced that all first-year students would have to draw lots to determine the order of the fights. The same emotional presenter announced all this. Everyone was also asked to stand in line. Wang Yan looked at the crowd. He noticed the main character, thinking to himself, Did he really return safe and sound? He was very angry and was sure that this time he would make sure that he would never rise again. A little later, it was Wang Yan's turn to draw lots, and he was called over. Everyone around him started talking about him, saying that he was taking advantage of his father's status to pester girls. As he approached the counter, the boy thought about the humiliation that Xiao Xinyu had brought upon him. But he did not despair, because he knew that today he would return to him 100 times more. The tournament draw determined that the first fight would be between Xiao Xinyu and Wang Yan. Before the fight, Wang Yan swore to his father that he would live up to his expectations. Approaching his opponent, he called him by name. Wang Yan himself confidently declared that he would personally destroy Xiao Xinyu's pet in the arena. In response to the enemy's threats, Xiao Xinyu only calmly and defiantly remarked that they would still see about it. The 7th match of the first round between Xiao Xinyu and Wang Yan was announced at the arena. The main character entered the arena absolutely unwavering. In the stands, brother Xinshin noticed that his sister was constantly looking at Xiao Xinyu and asked him again what exactly he should be feeling. He looked at her questioningly for a while until she spoke. The girl, watching Xiao Xinyu, noted that after falling from the cliff and returning, he became much stronger. The rector anxiously asked herself what he had to go through during these few days. The spectators were amazed at this coincidence, bringing together sworn enemies in their very first fight. But the battle began. The scanning device displayed information about the pets on an electronic board. Wang Yan immediately asked to be in the center of the battle. Xiao Xinyu stood, waiting for the enemy's first move. Xiao Xinyu's side summoned an epic rank Hellstorm Wolf with the Hellfire skill. From Wang Yan's side, a legendary ranked 6-legged Ice Leopard with the Mountain Freeze skill entered the battle. Murong Xingshin noticed that something was wrong with the Ice Leopard's aura. Judging from the radiation of the hellish Storm Wolf, its level is clearly higher than the first stage of the initial form. The girl suggested that all this was very strange, unless Xiao Xinyu is deliberately suppressing the level of his beast in order to use this fight to break through to the next level. Wang Yan commanded his Ice Leopard to use the Ice Ball technique. In response to this, the Wolf Xiao used the ability to hunt in the dark. The opponents clashed in a swift and furious battle. The fight was incredibly exciting. The arena was alternately engulfed in piercing frost. This also extended to the audience. Sometimes I even had to dress warmer. Sometimes the heat was also unbearable. The protagonist ordered his wolf to use the enhanced attack, Hell's Howl. It worked, and the 6-legged Ice Leopard was temporarily unable to use its abilities. People in the stands watched all this with amazement and exhaustion. The commentator noted that this battle was simply incredible. Then the main character decided to use the Claw of Oblivion. This was his signature move. His wolf was already in anticipation. The leopard did not lose hope of winning this fight, but what happened in the arena showed a completely different picture. Wang Yan's leopard was hit again. The leopard's confused expression was exactly like its owners, someone from the crowd said. Like the animals, like the hunters. Wang Yan shouted triumphantly that he would not fall for the same trick twice. He was thinking about his next steps. An intense and fast-paced battle between the animals unfolded in the arena. The 6-legged Ice Leopard, despite the temporary limitation of its abilities, continued to fight. The Hellstorm Wolf used its speed and strength to attack. New magical parts began to grow on his back and throughout his body. Both animals demonstrated an incredible will to win in this brutal confrontation. However, Leopard began to grow before our eyes in every sense of the word. He could now attack his opponent with even greater force. The girl in the stands wondered how Xiao Xinyu had become so strong in such a short time. Seeing the sudden and unnatural surge of strength from Wang Yan's wolf, Xiao Xinyu became suspicious. He decided to test his guess and directly asked Wang Yan if he had used a forbidden potion to temporarily strengthen the beast. For some time the question hung in the air unanswered. But a little later, in response, Wang Yan only rudely cut off Xiao Xinyu from interfering in other people's business. At this point, the enemy ordered his leopard to use a powerful attack, Ice Squall. An ice storm fell upon the wolf, but despite the wounds he received, he remained standing. Although it was clear from his appearance that this was difficult for him, the main character shouted to his pet to hold on. The enemy declared that this was not all, and used the force of an ice hammer on his leopard. Observers were surprised to see the 6-legged Ice Leopard suddenly and powerfully strengthen itself. Now this leopard became even stronger and headed straight towards his opponent. Black Fang hasn't used any of his abilities yet, he's just watching, but sometimes it was necessary to defend and dodge attacks. Although it didn't always work out, he tried to hold on with all his might. Some viewers even began to believe that Xiao Xinyu was losing ground and was about to lose. Wang Yan himself, addressing Xiao Xinyu, said that he had given in last time, but now he would see real strength. Meanwhile, Wang Yan's father approached Principal Su, assuring him that his son's talent was in no way inferior to Xiao Xinyu. The rector knew that the leopard's sudden increase in strength was so obvious that even a blind man would notice something was wrong, and she spoke with contempt of the father and son. The situation was becoming dire for Xiao Xinyu. Xin and the rector looked at the battlefield with a pleading expression, not believing that everything had already been decided. Spectators wondered if he had a trump card that could turn the tide of the battle. The protagonist said to himself that it was no accident that his Black Fang killed more than 100 magical beasts on Mount Yunyuan. He challenged Xiao Xinyu to ask if he really thought it was a coincidence. With an air of complete control, he directed his pet to use the fire elemental combat skill Hellfire Lotus. Wang Yan commanded his leopard to use Frost Flame, ordering it to shorten its distance from the deadly attack. To everyone's surprise, Xiao Xinyu also used a fire elemental martial skill. Commentators noted that his future was limitless. Black Fang was angry at his rival and was ready to tear him apart on the spot. He used the skill that Xinyu ordered him to use, and the fire energy instantly turned into a fire lotus. The teacher noted this combat skill, and a sly smile appeared on his face. The rector found this incredible, as he had used a skill that was only available to fully developed beasts. However, this rapid rise gave Father Wang the alarming thought that such a dangerous rival could not be left alive. The two fire attacks of the Hellfire Lotus and Wang Yan's skill collided in a monstrous clash. For a moment, there was a deathly silence. Everyone held their breath in anticipation of the outcome. The Hellstorm Wolf only has a basic form, but he hasn't been able to master it. If this continues, the protagonist might even surpass Yening Shuang and become the best in the entire academy. Apparently, everything is heading in this direction. The leopard was already lying defeated on the ground, under fire from his enemy. Only dust from this fight remained in the arena. A guy approached the lying leopard to see what condition it was in. There was still deathly silence in the arena. No one had the right to disturb it. Only occasionally could anxious sighs be heard. The presenter was only able to break it. He raised his hand up, uttered only one word, one, and paused. Then he shouted out Xiao Xinyu's name. The stands came to life again and began to squeal at this news. The data on the electronic scoreboard changed. The data of the hellish Stormwolf showed a jump from the first to the third stage of the initial form. Commentators announced that Xiao Xinyu had set an unprecedented record. It was Xiao Xinyu who caused this miracle, as his beast was able to rise 2 steps right in the arena. Xiao happily accepted all the cheers from his fans. The protagonist encouraged his Black Fang. He recalled how, after killing dozens of magical beasts on Mount Yunyuan, he encountered the lava tiger. He explained that his pet, having gone through many deadly trials, was already on the threshold of evolution. Wang Yan admitted that he used his leopard's ice abilities to corner Black Fang. Wang Yan's father, Wang Dongsheng, defiantly stated that everything must be supported by evidence, and demanded that they present it if there was any. The situation escalated, and Wang Yan's father, Wang Dongsheng, accused Xiao Xinyu of cruelty, claiming that the 6-legged ice leopard was dead. Wang wanted to prove that this was enough to expel him from the academy. Some teachers supported this position, considering Xiao Xinyu dangerous and talented, but uncontrollable. In response, the rector, wanting to get to the bottom of the truth and protect his student, ordered the leopard's body to be brought in for an autopsy by a veterinarian. He stated that until the truth became clear, he would not spare anyone who tried to slander his student. After the examination, the rector asked the doctor about the results and whether anything had been found. The veterinarian, who had been bribed by Wang Dongsheng, informed the rector that the leopard's internal organs were severely damaged. This confirmed Wang Dongsheng's version, but someone present objected. Having said that the Lotus of Hellfire attacks the soul and leaves no physical damage, this leopard died from internal bleeding. It was also noted that the mental attack leaves no physical traces. Wang Dongsheng triumphantly declared that even the doctor confirmed his words, and turned to the rector with a provocative question. Feeling the pressure mounting and realizing that his doctor protege was wavering, the protagonist asked the doctor if he was sure of his diagnosis. He warned him that he shouldn't risk his career for bribes, and advised him to think again. He whispered it in his ear so that no one could hear it. Faced with serious accusations, Wang Dongsheng requested a blood test on the leopard for re-examination. 10 minutes later, the doctor, trembling, began to report to the rector that the leopard had died of something. But he hesitated. When he was abruptly interrupted, he blurted out in panic that death was due to rabies. Presenting irrefutable evidence, the prosecution claimed that Wang Yan had given his magical beast a prohibited substance. Wang Yan desperately denied it. However, when he was presented with irrefutable evidence, he found nothing to answer. The public was outraged, saying they had no idea such a heartless person even existed. Wang Yan, in a panic, turned to his father for help. The father, Wang Dongsheng, being the vice-rector, forgot about his position, and began to humbly beg the rector to give his son another chance. The rector sharply reminded Wang Dongsheng of his dual role as a father and an academy employee, and he must act accordingly. If he is going to cover for his son, he can leave the academy with him. Wang Dongsheng then delivered his verdict, stating that Wang Yan had violated the academy's rules. It was emphasized that the fact of using a prohibited substance had been established, and there was no choice left. Wang Dongsheng, realizing that further cover-up would put him at risk as well, gave in. He ordered Wang Yan to be thrown out of the academy, and his son cried out in despair, not believing that his father would expel him. Thus the loud scandal came to an end. Shortly after, the list of the top 8 freshmen was released, including Murong Xinshin and Xiao Xinyu. Xiao Xinyu's victory has sparked a variety of reactions. He was hailed as a true dark horse among the rookies, a genius without connections or wealth who managed to make it into the top 8. Murong Xinxin looked at the scoreboard and really wanted to beat him. Xiao Xinyu's friend was delighted and told him the great news of reaching the top 8. Xiao Xinyu himself, however, took this calmly, asking if this was a reason for joy, but his friend insisted on celebrating. Dong Sheng, who was watching this whole situation, thought to himself with malicious glee that he would still see Xiao Xinyu laughing. After all, when he returned home, he would be horrified by what he saw. After a late celebration, Xiao Xinyu finally returned home. Approaching the house, he discovered a broken door. Inside, he found his younger sister, Shi Meng. She tearfully told them that their older sister, Ruo Shui, had been kidnapped by a masked man who left a letter. She reached out to her brother in fear and hugged him. Then he tried to calm his sister down. The letter contained an order that if he wanted to save his sister, he should go to the Yinanshan Mountains. Following the instructions, Xiao Xinyu arrived at Yinanshan Mountain. When he saw his sister in front of him, he screamed furiously, demanding that the kidnapper let his sister go, and tried to understand who dared to do this. His screams brought forth a masked man who calmly told him not to scream, as his sister was still alive. The girl sat unconscious and did not respond to anything. Then the guy began to beg even more for the offender to let her go. The masked man asked if he was interested in who he was. Xiao Xinyu analytically noted that the only conflict he had recently had was with Wang Yan, but he didn't have the courage to kidnap him. The masked man laughed maliciously as he confessed to Xiao Xinyu. He said that if he were his son, he would make him the strongest young hunter in the entire empire. However, life turned out differently, and Xiao Xinyu wounded his own son. So now the guy was destined to die. He then called upon his powerful pet, the Stone Guardian, to help him, preparing to attack. Xiao Xinyu felt the terrifying aura of a king-level beast, but he did not retreat. This beast began to growl to make the enemy retreat, although it was reckless. Van began to say that this is where the protagonist's path would end. He said he was afraid that the deputy rector would become disappointed. When he mockingly asked if he wanted his dog to become a snack for the bear, Xiao Xinyu countered by asking who said he only had one beast. At that moment, the voice of another being sounded in his mind. The deputy rector noticed that a very frightening aura had appeared. The girl who showed up complained that she was again not being allowed to sleep normally. Therefore, she demanded that the owner think about moral compensation. Xiao Xinyu gave the command to his second pet Dale to kill the bear so that he could sleep peacefully afterwards. Dailu seemed to agree, noting that she would get rid of him and be able to go back to sleep. Wang Dongsheng thought to himself that he was so terrified that if he didn't do something right now, things would go badly. He tried to do something against the enemy's newly arrived pet. His bear was already throwing the first blow in their direction, but the girl was just trying to wake up. As soon as she opened her eyes, a powerful energy began to emanate from her, which was strange not to notice. While Dongsheng's beast was trying its best, the fox stood quietly in its place. The bear raised a sledgehammer above himself, which weighed much more than he did. However, he didn't have time to do anything, and remained frozen in this position. His owner looked at this picture in horror. He looked at the girl thoughtfully. He realized that Xiao Xinyu's second pet was a nine-tailed fox. Vice Principal Wang was shocked to recognize her as the very same royal-level beast that was being sought throughout the country. He accused Xiao Xinyu of making a contract with the Empire's most wanted criminal. He stated that if this became known, the consequences would be serious. Wang mockingly stated that the gap between a 1-star and a 6-star beast hunter could not be bridged with just one summoned beast. Wang Dongsheng turned out to be a 6th-star hunter. That's why I was able to give strength to my magical beast again. Xiao Xinyu himself, having summoned the fox, told Deputy Wang that since he had shown him this beast, it meant he did not plan to let it go alive. In response, the deputy said that even with such a strong 9-tailed fox, he should not forget himself. Deputy Wang announced that he would now show that the gap between 1 and 6 stars was not so easy to overcome. He demonstrated his power by summoning a black fog. His beast was already ready to break through, just to carry out the order of its master. Having thrown off his stone appearance, he began to roar loudly throughout the area. With this roar, another skill of this magical bear began to be called upon. Xiao Xinyu immediately identified it as an attribute of darkness. Beasts with the dark attribute must feed on the blood of humans or other beasts to replenish their energy. Xiao Xinyu continued his accusation, stating that low-level beasts began to disappear in Longyin City about 5 years ago. A magical symbol appeared on the deputy's face. He said that it was a great honor to die from the fangs of a bear. The protagonist recognized this symbol on his face. He pronounced it Black Skull. Red Skull is one of the 5 major dark guilds, specializing in training dark attribute hunters. He then made a direct threat, asking what would happen if everyone found out that the Academy's vice-rector was actually a member of the Red Skull. At this moment, the 9-tailed fox informed Xiao Xinyu that with his current energy reserves, she was unable to use any skills. Xiao Xinyu, however, confidently told her not to worry. as he never entered into battle unless he was confident of victory. The battle was reaching its climax. The protagonist began to feel a new strength within himself, which was coming to him with every minute. Deputy Wong ordered his stone demon bear to attack with a shout. Naturally, he carried out his order flawlessly. In turn, the guy, with the power of thought, ordered Dial to act. The nine-tailed fox, Dailu, rushed towards the threat. Deputy Wong gave the order to his beast to use the attack. In response, Dailu used her bloody gaze technique. This is what her owner, the main character, shouted to her. The fox's eyes immediately lit up with a furious, fiery light. Without wasting a second, she ran towards her opponent. She soon raised her gaze upward, leaving her opponents in bewilderment. A huge, menacing red eye looked down on their entire team. And the fox was not afraid of him at all. She continued to stand and look at him. This eye seemed to give her even more energy. The stone demon bear roared in rage, while the nine-tailed fox was already fully prepared for the decisive battle, although the deputy rector's animal didn't look like someone who was ready to lose. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a powerful blow flew at the bear, cutting it in two. He was also able to pierce the owner of this beast. Deputy Wang screamed in panic, not believing in the possibility of defeat. The defeated Deputy Wang, coughing up blood, croaked something about the Dark Guild. Xiao Xinyu's strength was rapidly leaving him, and he began to lose consciousness. He began to feel the side effects of taking the Dragon Spirit pill. Dailu called out to her master in alarm, begging him not to fall asleep. She called out to Xiao Xinyu, ordering him to wake up, wanting to force him. A girl appeared in front of the weakened Xiao Xinyu and the anxious Dailu. She grabbed Dela by the throat when she panicked and asked who had come. It was the main character's sister, who apparently just woke up. The two of them continued to stand on Mount Yunyan in the middle of the dark night. The boy's sister noted with disgust the terrible smell that reigned around the battle site. Looking at Dila, the girl was surprised to recognize her as a nine-tailed fox, a magical beast in the form of the king of beasts. She expressed bewilderment that such a powerful being would make a contract with her brother. Then the fox felt the power emanating from the girl and exclaimed in amazement that it was the power of a dragon. Dailu, watching the girl tensely, asked her directly whether she was Xiao Xinyu's sister. The girl hissed coldly and threateningly in response that she didn't need to know that at all. She approached slowly, intending to do something now. However, she admitted that she really is the protagonist's sister. The girl herself, having analyzed the guy's condition, suggested that he had taken a medicine that temporarily increased his spiritual energy. Now he is experiencing side effects. She reassured the girl that he would be fine and would only need 3 days to recover. Hearing this, the girl said with relief that this was good. The girl used a unique ability. She lived deep inside her, the protagonist's sister. It seemed that she herself was very exhausted by today, but she was not ready to leave her brother in such a state. And while the fox was sitting next to Xiao Xinyu, the girl stood up. A spark of newfound strength lit up her eyes. A superb melody flowed from her mouth, as if drowning out everything around. It spread across the entire mountain. Recently, dead plants and flowers began to come back to life from this sound. Dailu was surprised to recognize in it the combat skill known as Dragon Whisper. This skill, unique to purebred dragons, allowed them to restore any entity in the world using a special melody. At this moment, Xiao Xinyu's strength began to return. The healing melody of the Dragon's Whisper completely erased all traces of today's battle. The girl said that, except for Dailu, her and Xiao Xinyu, no one else would know what happened here. She added that among purebred dragons there is only one with such scales, and his name is Chaos. She then threatened Dailu, ordering him to help Xiao Xinyu properly from now on, otherwise she would cut off all her tails. This threat sounded very frightening, leaving the fox no choice. Therefore Dailu quickly and clearly agreed. She also asked for one more thing, not to reveal her identity. Xiao Xinyu woke up in a hospital room with IVs connected to him. He was met by his sister and the director of the academy. Ruoshu's elder sister told Xiao Xinyu that she woke up in the Yunnan Mountains next to him. He lay there unconscious and sweating. Not knowing what had happened, she immediately carried him downstairs for assistance. Xiao Xinyu noted with relief that his sister hadn't noticed anything strange, which meant that Dailu had cleaned everything up thoroughly. The director then informed Xiao Xinyu that he had been unconscious for 3 days and had missed the semi-finals and finals of the freshman ranking tournament. This is considered a voluntary withdrawal from participation. She announced that Murong Xinxin and Murong Yangshuo took first and second place. But then her worried look changed to a joyful one. She was about to say something in contrast. The protagonist's eyes once again sparkled with determination and excitement for the upcoming game. An uneasy silence fell over the hospital room. The protagonist's gaze showed determination and readiness for further action. The rector closed her eyes, preparing to speak the next important words. The rector told Xiao Xinyu the disturbing news that Vice President Wang had gone missing 3 days ago. Xiao Xinyu tensed up inside, fearing that the authorities had begun to suspect something. Suddenly, the protagonist's sister flared up with rage at the girl standing in front of her. She thought incredulously that if anyone dared to harm Xiao Xinyu, she would immediately kill the offender. The rector, reassuring them, stated that he believed in Xiao Xinyu's innocence and would continue to investigate the case. She also stated that the Azure Dragon Academy will have to find a new vice-rector. A little later, she announced that she had come not only to check on Xiao Xinyu's condition, but also to report on the Supernova competition. This is a major event jointly organized by the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Red Crane, and Black Tortoise Academies. She explained that if we talk about the most talented student, everyone will mention the name Yening Shuang. However, at last year's competition, she lost to Li Mucheng of the White Tiger Academy and only took second place. That's why the principal wants Xiao Xinyu to become one of the representatives of the Azure Dragon Academy and restore the honor of the academy. Su Ruyan convinced Xiao Xinyu that this was a great chance for him to make up for the missed opportunity at the ranking tournament. She explained that there were only two conditions. A participant must have at least 2 battle beasts and be a trapper of at least a 2nd star. Su Ruyan added that it was common practice for participants in last year's competition to sign contracts with at least 2 animals. The rector assured him that there was no need to worry, because the competition would take place next month, and she believed in him. Xiao Xinyu, inspired by the rector's trust, promised that first place in the Supernova competition would be his. The protagonist walked through the forest and reflected on the fact that the participants of the previous competition had entered into contracts with at least 2 animals. Xiao Xinyu understood that he also had 2 beasts, but Dailu was wanted throughout the country and could not be summoned in open battles. Besides, his second beast, Black Fang, was just a hellstorm wolf in its initial form. Luckily, he had prepared everything in advance. After Principal Su left, Xiao Xinyu checked out of the hospital and used his salary from the Heaven Guild to buy some fire supplements. I also acquired several materials for evolution. Some of them were rewards from the Yunnan Mountain Trials and the Freshman Ranking Tournament. After examining the materials, he decided that this was enough to begin the process of Black Fang's evolution. Having prepared all the necessary materials, Xiao Xinyu gave the command to his Hellstorm Wolf, Black Fang, to begin evolving. The wolf began to absorb energy supplements and materials. Xiao Xinyu encouraged him, knowing that the process could be painful. He warned Dela that Black Fang might have a breakdown during evolution, and asked her to protect them. Dailu immediately agreed and prepared herself, while Xiao Xinyu himself concentrated on maintaining contact with the pet. The process of evolution was slow but steady, and the fox tried to help as best she could. The guy felt the pain that his pet was now experiencing, and that made it even more painful. From this he ordered the divine panel to obey him. Xiao Xinyu watched through her as the progress gradually increased. He got halfway through, then reached a significant portion, approaching completion. However, when the progress stalled at 99%, anxiety crept into Xiao Xinyu's heart. Finally, the evolution was successfully completed. Black Fang was transformed into a wolf, a first-stage mature underworld with an epic pedigree. He gained a new attribute, a demonic one, which awakened along with the already existing fire and wind ones. His abilities were enhanced. The Hellfire now dealt pure damage, ignoring the enemy's armor, which affected Dailu. Xiao Xinyu was amazed and delighted, noting that the demonic attribute had awakened and calling Black Fang truly unique. After congratulating his pet on becoming even stronger, Xiao Xinyu thought about his next step. Now he needed to make a contract with a new beast to fulfill the conditions for participating in the Supernova competition. Yanran learned of his plans to participate in the Supernova competition, and the need to make a contract with a new beast. She firmly stated that as his brother, his problems were her problems, and offered to pay for the purchase of the animal at the animal market. Despite his attempts to object, she insisted, declaring that it was just one animal. At the store, the saleswoman, as soon as she saw the 2 guys, decided to talk to them right away. She wonders whether they are looking for an electrical drug or a lightning crystal. Yanran explained that her brother would be participating in a competition in a month, and they had come to find a suitable beast for the contract. The saleswoman confidently assured them not to worry and to rely on her. She started to imagine options: a demonic red spider with high attack, also a shadow tigress, fast and dealing increased damage from stealth. However, Sister Yanran politely but firmly interrupted her, saying that they did not need cheap options, and asked to see high-class beasts. Hearing this, the saleswoman respectfully replied that since Mrs. Chin said so, she would not hide her treasures from them. The girl decided to introduce several high-class animals. They were located in special domes under liquids. Or rather, in a special, unique flask, the seller clarified. Perhaps someone had already caught their eye. A subterranean pangolin of transcendental form with an epic pedigree and skills of subterranean sense and enhanced underground speed. A 3-headed fire snake of legendary bloodline with powerful poison and fire damage. Another icebone bird with icebone skill and frost whirlwind ability. Each of them was impressive. But Xiao Xinyu, after carefully examining their characteristics, noted that none of them had a hidden bloodline. The seller, noticing Xiao Xinyu's dissatisfaction, asked what kind of animal he needed then, suggesting that he voice his requirements. At that moment, the assistant announced that a new shipment had arrived, some of the finest animals she had ever seen, which was confirmed by her assistant with a sly and sinister smile. They were elven-looking beasts that looked very helpless. Xiao Xinyu asked doubtfully. Weren't these types of beasts considered useless, and asked why they were needed at all. Ms. Qin explained that if they were sold as fighting animals, then of course no one would take them, but as pets they would sell out in no time. The protagonist's eyes once again sparkled with a bright red light. Xiao Xinyu noticed a low-born water pixie with no skills or abilities. However, his divine panel or inner sense revealed her hidden angel bloodline. He was amazed by this discovery. Ignoring his sister's astonishment, he resolutely declared that he wanted to buy her. Sister Yanran and the salesman were perplexed, asking what he was even thinking and what he didn't like about her. But Xiao Xinyu firmly repeated that he wanted her to become his beast, realizing her true, hidden potential. Xiao Xinyu brought the pixies to Nanshan Mountain, where a quiet atmosphere reigned. The hero touched her with his hand, telling her not to be afraid. He did not want to harm her. He handed her some kind of medicinal remedy, saying that if she ate it, her wounds would heal. It really helped the little girl. She was instantly cured. He then gently asked her if she would agree to make a blood contract with him and become his beast. Pixie looked at him a little apprehensively. She thought about all the words he had said to her before. Then she took his finger with her hands as a sign of consent. The guy asked again if it was true, if she was sure. After the pixie's confirmation, the hero decided to bind them with his blood. Pixie happily confirmed that from now on they are connected. The contract has been successfully concluded. The hero asked the girl if, since she had agreed to accept the blood contract, this meant that she recognized him as her master. He noted to himself that after the contract was concluded, the bond between the beast and the trapper really became much stronger. Then he remembered something important and handed the pixie the bloodline awakening crystal that he had shattered especially for her. He explained to the pixie that if she ate the crystal, she would be able to evolve. Pixie swallowed the crystal shards and the transformation process began. She didn't seem to expect it to happen so soon. The process was accompanied by strange sounds and light effects. Seeing that she was having a hard time, Xiao Xinyu encouraged her, asking her to endure a little longer. Evolution began its work, accompanied by sounds and explosions. Dailu stood up for the main character, asking what was going on. Shay replied that everything was fine, and he didn't need any protection. The hidden bloodline was awakened. The girl was wrapped in a large cocoon that glowed and emitted light. After some time, the cocoon opened and the girl began to straighten out. A majestic sacred angel of light appeared in the winged form of the first stage with the mythical blood of an angel. Dailu and the hero looked at her with admiration. The boy saw that the pixie's new abilities were impressive. The sacred shield of light dispelled negative effects and created a barrier. Xiao Xinyu excitedly guessed that once he became the 9th star's beast hunter, she would be able to evolve. Then he remembered that he hadn't given her a name yet. Considering that before awakening she was a spirit of the water element, he suggested naming her Freya, citing the associations with the spirit of water. Freya descended from the pedestal with incredible beauty, closer to her master. Xiao Xinyu solemnly announced to Freya that from now on they would fight side by side. Now, with 2 powerful beasts, he has taken another important step towards participating in the supernova competition. The next stage of his training was to obtain the rank of 2nd star trapper. Returning to the academy, he announced his intention to take the exam to become a 2nd star trapper. This surprised the curator, and he was dissatisfied. The hero explained that since the supernova competition was about to begin, he needed to do this as quickly as possible. Teacher Chen was initially skeptical of the application, noting that the Murong clan's brother and sister had also passed the 2nd star exam 3 days ago. However, after hearing rumors that Xiao Xinyu's Black Fang had evolved to the mature stage, he decided to test its level. Xiao Xinyu accepted the challenge confidently. When Teacher Chen measured his spiritual power, the instrument showed a staggering 2,583 units. He was shocked, saying that if he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed it. The teacher explained that none of his former students, even the most talented ones, had achieved such levels of spiritual strength. Impressed by the results, Teacher Chen gave permission for the exam to take place in Blood Mist Canyon. That's why the main character headed there directly by helicopter. After a while, he began to open the helicopter door. Opening it fully, he looked down, realizing where the exam would take place. He listened to the rector's voice in the earphone, which said that Xiao Xinyu had arrived at the entrance of the Blood Mist Canyon. She explained the task, to go through the canyon completely. If he successfully reached the exit, the exam would be considered passed. She also warned him about the many magical beasts in the canyon, and advised him not to be a hero. Xiao Xinyu took a deep breath and informed the rector that he was ready. With her best wishes, the exam officially began. In the observation room, teachers monitored the progress of the exam. They discussed the route and the dangers of Blood Mist Canyon. To get through the canyon, the examinees first had to fight iron-toothed crocodiles, the teacher realized, then escape from the blood demon spiders that live in the demon cave, among which, sometimes, individuals of the 3rd stage of the mature form were found, which posed a particular danger. Moreover, yesterday's downpour has created a host of additional threats in the Crimson Swamp. Xiao Xinyu encountered the first obstacle, causing him to squeal without even realizing it. These were the third-stage initial form iron-toothed crocodiles with an elite pedigree. Their abilities, such as a terrifying grip and a poisonous stream, made them dangerous opponents. The teachers who observed the exam noted that if Xiao Xinyu summoned the wolf of the underworld, there would be no danger. However, instead of summoning Black Fang, Xiao Xinyu decided to test his new ally and called out loudly for her. He himself rushed down, risking himself in the process. After all, it was right below that hungry crocodiles were already waiting for him. The appearance of a second magical beast, and not Black Fang, caused amazement among the observing teachers. When they saw the information about the summoned beast, the holy angel of light of the primordial form of the first stage, their astonishment turned into shock. The rector noted with admiration that Xiao Xinyu was simply a monster, since he had made a contract with the mythical angel of light. They could not believe that such creatures, which they had not met for many years, even existed. It seemed that now the iron-toothed crocodiles were no obstacle for the main character. The curator remembered the rumor that Xiao Xinyu had bought a water pixie from the magical beast shop 2 days ago, and wondered if it was her. However, the rector categorically rejected this, stating that the water pixies were lower beasts, while the sacred angel of light possessed the purest bloodline. She also realized that perhaps it was worth considering the uniqueness of the situation, and Xiao Xinyu himself. The curator noted that Xiao Xinyu always makes the impossible possible. Meanwhile, the two guys stood against these crocodiles. The guy asked Freya to take action and attack them all, which is what she was already planning to do. She got ready and began to show her strength. By fighting, Freya demonstrated just how incredible she really is. She overcame iron-toothed crocodiles with just one blow, striving to cross the swamp faster. The observing teachers were shocked to recognize her as a true sacred angel of light with a mythical bloodline. Xiao Xinyu asked Freya to lead him through this swamp. However, Freya decided to act in her own way and grabbed Xiao Xinyu with her hand. She picked him up and flew with him, causing the hero, not realizing the situation, to ask what was going on. All this made him sheepishly ask to be put on the ground as quickly as possible, calling it humiliating. He even closed his eyes. He was so uncomfortable and truly humiliated. Having crossed the swamp, a very thick fog was noticed. Spiders have also already started to crawl out, a new test for Xiao Xinyu. From small and harmless, they quickly began to grow, acquiring a frightening appearance. As soon as they encountered all this, Xiao Xinyu warned Freya to be careful, sensing the growing danger. This growing danger was already approaching from a colony of blood demon spiders. These mature third-stage beasts with elite bloodlines possessed super-strong thread that was resistant to water, fire, and slashing attacks. They also had the spider prison skill, which created a giant web that envelops and constricts the victim. These spiders had a very frightening appearance. It seemed that they could open their mouths and immediately swat anyone. Xiao Xinyu became wary, realizing that they lived in entire colonies, which made meeting them extremely dangerous. Xiao Xinyu assessed the situation and realized that there were at least 20 of them in the cave. I continued to examine the area to understand how to proceed further. Despite his inner anxiety, he remained outwardly calm, but these beasts sensed his inner state, so they were ready to attack right now. The main character himself was aware of this and was ready to parry them. The teacher knew that even in its initial form, the Holy Angel of Light had the unique ability to ignore differences in strength. It was also clear that it could cause damage even to mature individuals. However, Freya alone was not enough to effectively counter such a large colony. Therefore, Xiao Xinyu made a decision and loudly called out to his faithful battle comrade, Black Fang, preparing for a serious fight. Of course, he immediately came running to his master's call. Freya was also ready for the fight. The guy was aware of his strength and knew that he could control the situation. The rector, who was observing the exam, warned Xiao Xinyu through the communication system not to waste time. She wanted to remind them that to pass the exam they needed to reach the finish line, not kill all the magical beasts. Xiao Xinyu took this advice and commanded his wolf, Black Fang, to use the Hell Howl ability. This is to create a path through a colony of spiders, or to disorient them, allowing for a quick passage. However, the spiders were not going to lose and began to attack. The beast that accepted the order still couldn't dodge the large number of webs flying towards it. The spiders, one after another, continued their plan to overthrow their opponents. They were very agile and fast, and managed to follow the wolf's movements. At the same time, managing to attack the opponent. Their web instantly captured Black Fang. At first, just one paw, but with such force that the wolf seemed unable to stand still. Not even a second passed before the next web was able to wrap around the wolf's front paw. And while he was trying to somehow free himself from it, the spiders did not stop. Realizing that a simple dodge wouldn't do, Xiao Xinyu quickly developed a tactic. He ordered Freya to activate her sacred shield of light on Black Fang to protect him while he prepared his powerful technique. He then commanded Black Fang to spin around and use one of his strongest skills, Hellfire Lotus. This could burn the web that entangled him and cause massive damage to the entire colony of spiders. The combination attack worked brilliantly. Protected by Freya's sacred shield, Black Fang unleashed a whirlwind of hellfire. The protagonist, inspired by success, boldly declared that this is all that the spiderlings are capable of. However, at that moment, a wave of an even more ominous and powerful aura rolled out from the depths of the cave, making Xiao Xinyu wary and noticing to himself how powerful the aura was. From the darkness of the cave emerged the true master of these places, Crypto Puspider, a magical beast that has undergone complete evolution to the first stage, possessing an elite quality bloodline. Also had a psychic attribute and skills of super strong thread and clan mind. Seeing this, Teacher Chen urgently ordered Xiao Xinyu to retreat through the communication system, explaining that yesterday's downpour had attracted the crypto spider. Xiao Xinyu, however, objected, asking what to do with his exam then. But Xiao Xinyu firmly rejected the idea of retaking it. Teacher Chen again demanded that they stop risking their lives, saying that a team was already on its way to pick him up. Xiao Xinyu was warned to refuse the fight, as his current strength would not allow him to kill the crypto spider. In response, Xiao Xinyu only grinned, ready to prove otherwise. He was determined to prove to everyone that he was capable of more, while the teacher continued to shout at him remotely. The main character had long ago given the order to his beasts to attack. He had already hatched a plan for victory, and although the curator's words instilled some doubt in his abilities, he did not want to stop. The boy declared his desire to pass the exam to become a second-star hunter and kill this magical beast. But his main goal was to find out his true limit. Mentally giving a command to his Black Fang, he told it to stealthily approach the crypto spider from behind, so the wolf could use the Claw of Oblivion. The hero examined his new opponent and needed to understand how to act correctly. He then ordered Freya to cover him by coordinating the attack of his beasts. Xiao Xinyu commanded his Black Fang to attack. The beast rushed into battle, fulfilling the order of its master, and a fierce battle ensued between them and the spider. The hero shouted at Freya to remember to cover him, ready to strike. The cryptopyder let out a loud scream, demonstrating his anger and power. In the midst of the battle, the forces clashed in a fierce confrontation. Despite all the enemy's might, Xiao Xinyu and his allies continued to fight. The fight continued with unrelenting intensity. Cryptopyder demonstrated all his power and cunning. Xiao Xinyu and his beasts tried to hold the line and find a weak spot. But so far, they have not been able to dodge the crypto spider's attacks. However, they got up immediately after their failed attempts. The spider just looked at them, waiting for them to tip over again. Suddenly, the main character shouted in rage at the crypto spider, asking what he was happy about. He became very angry in response, baring his teeth at the guy. He hissed and used one of his most powerful moves. The crypto spider released a poisonous web, and the battle reached a critical point. Xiao Xinyu immediately warned his Black Fang to be careful and retreat to a safe place. He understood that it was impossible to simply escape from such an enemy, and he needed to urgently come up with a new plan. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu noticed something strange about the enemy's state. He watched in amazement as the magical beast's health bar gradually decreased on its own. Looking closely, he saw that the wound inflicted by the Black Fang was not very deep. However, the web that the crypto spider was releasing had clearly become weaker, indicating its gradual weakening. At this point, he noticed that his Black Fang was seriously injured and would most likely no longer withstand direct combat. Without wasting any time, Xiao Xinyu ordered Freya to cover him, preparing for the decisive move. He saw the crypto spider's life bar decrease again, and it dawned on him that he finally figured out how to deal with the nasty spider. With a new plan, he ordered Black Fang to spit on the enemy, encouraging him and not allowing him to hold back. Black Fang reacted with surprise to his master's unusual order, but did not argue. He immediately carried out the command, spitting on the crypto spider. This attack, seemingly insignificant, caused a clear reaction from the magical beast, distracting it. Taking advantage of the moment, Xiao Xinyu gave the next order, telling Black Fang to quickly move into the shadows and attack. His guess was confirmed when he saw the result. Xiao Xinyu realized that the crypto spider expended its life force when it released its web. This became the key to victory. He realized that once the beast used up the last thread, his days would be numbered. Therefore, Xiao Xinyu ordered Black Fang not to take unnecessary risks, but simply to exhaust the enemy, forcing him to waste his life energy. But not everything went as smoothly as we would have liked. Suddenly, the wolf found himself caught in the web again by his hind leg. The spider was pleased with himself and wanted to harm this beast. But the wolf skillfully dodged, and, if this did not work, quickly got back into a fighting stance. The hero, seeing this picture, ordered Freya to use the sacred shield of light on Black Fang and remove the negative effects from him. The teachers flew over in a helicopter while watching the battle unfold. The weather was not suitable for flying, but they were forced to take this step. From a safe place, the two of them discussed what was happening. The curator asked why they hadn't intervened in the fight yet. The rector replied that there was no need to rush. Xiao Xinyu had found a way to win. After 7 hours of grueling battle, the tide finally began to turn in Xiao Xinyu's favor. Xiao Xinyu noted to himself that the enemy could not deal with the Black Fang, which was now strengthened by demonic power. The crypto spider had already lost 90% of its health, and even its web had become noticeably lighter and weaker. However, The guy didn't understand why the crypto spider, having lost so much blood, still wasn't trying to escape. Then another thought struck him. The crypto spider hadn't left the cave all this time, and Xiao Xinyu began to suspect that there might be something inside. Xiao Xinyu gave a decisive command to his Black Fang to use Hell Howl. The beast emitted a deafening and piercing sound, capable of demoralizing and disorienting the enemy. After this, Xiao Xinyu saw that the crypto spider had almost no strength left, and realized that this was their decisive chance. Without wasting a second, he commanded the Black Fang to deliver the final blow, attacking the enemy with the Lotus of Hellfire. This powerful finishing move was supposed to end the protracted confrontation. This trio was capable of accomplishing what they set out to do. Suddenly, two new figures appeared on the battlefield, descending from the air to intervene. Xiao Xinyu, seeing this, shouted loudly to them not to worry about him and ordered them to launch a decisive attack. Turning to his faithful beast, he gave the final order to use the Hellfire Lotus one more time. In response, he released the final, most devastating Lotus of Hellfire straight at the weakened crypto spider. The finishing blow finally helped defeat this spider. The hero sat down on the ground with an exhalation, said that everything worked out. He praised his animals, saying that they did a great job. The guy was going to find out what was hidden inside this cave, because he was sure that there must be something worthwhile there. His team headed towards it with him. However, he was suddenly abruptly ordered to leave immediately. Xiao Xinyu, stunned, objected that he had already defeated the crypto spider. To this, they explained the terrible truth. Even after death, this creature can continue to move for some time by inertia. Xiao Xinyu didn't immediately understand what this meant, but in the next moment, he understood everything. The still warm body of the crypto spider made its last movement in its death throes. He blocked the only exit from the cave with his massive body, sealing everyone inside. The crypto spider began to roar furiously at the uninvited guests who dared to defeat him. Seeing this, the trapper urgently shouted to the others to quickly hide in it, preparing to take a possible blow. Finding herself trapped, the situation instantly changed. The fairy remembered all those kind and warm words that the guy said to her. With a confident look, she rushed forward, straight towards their common enemy. Using his strength, his most powerful moves, just to help his team, Xiao Xinyu commanded Freya to return to him immediately, feeling an unusual connection with her. Freya, despite all the persuasion and orders, was not going to retreat. Her confrontation ended with a powerful explosion that illuminated everything around. The main character looked at the girl in surprise, and asked if she had just mastered a new skill herself. After a while, he started hugging her, rejoicing and saying that she was incredible. Xiao Xinyu's attention was suddenly drawn to a mysterious object in the depths of the cave. He pointed at it in amazement, guessing that this was what the crypto spider had so desperately defended, even at the cost of his own life. He immediately turned to one of the trappers named Dailu and asked if he knew what it was. Dailu explained that the growing process is extremely complex and listed the necessary components, dewdrops, and the nectar of the magical yellow. The protagonist noticed that it was just a seed, but he was even more worried about it than about the daughter of an aristocrat. The boy turned to Dailu, noting that she had the form of a beast king and that she was very dangerous. He guessed that she must be familiar with many beasts of that level, hinting that she could ask them for the necessary fertilizer, to which Freya seemed to indignantly reply that she would not stoop so low and collect fertilizer. Meanwhile, one of the teachers in the helicopter asked Xiao Xinyu if everything was okay with him, to which he received an affirmative answer. 2 weeks later, in the city of Siming, the weather was clear over the playground. Xiao Xinyu, amazed by the scale of the event, noted that the atmosphere and scale of the national competition were astonishing, as expected. Yang Shuo was surprised to see him appear early, calling him Great Xiao Xinyu. The hero exchanged friendly greetings with the approaching participants, Yang Shuo and Liu Jin, noting that Liu Jin had become even more beautiful. The last words made her react with confusion. Liu Jin's brother, Murongyan, immediately reacted, aggressively asking how Xiao Xinyu dared to call his sister that. Xiao Xinyu calmly explained that full was too long, so he came up with a nickname for her, which only angered Murongyan even more. However, Liu Jin herself intervened in the situation, calmly asking her brother to sit down and calm down. Murongyan listened to his sister and agreed. Xiao Xinyu then asked Liu Jin about her progress, wondering how much her beasts had progressed, to which the girl began to tell him. Her brother, Murongyan, watching this calm conversation, was shocked that his little sister would talk to another guy herself. Murongyan was lost in thought, sadly noting that girls grow up too quickly, and remembering that she had always been so withdrawn. In despair, he exclaimed that heaven and earth had gone mad, and the world had turned upside down, since the cat now hung out with the mouse. Xinyu, noticing the boy's strange behavior, asked what was wrong with him. His sister quickly waved it off, telling him to forget about it. Then the protagonist changed the conversation to a more important topic, asking who they were fighting today. At this moment, a new person appeared and announced that the results were already known, and those present respectfully addressed Rector Su. She announced to the assembled group that their first opponent would be the White Tiger Academy, and called for them to be destroyed at all costs. Her passionate speech was interrupted by the appearance of Director Zhu from the White Tiger Academy. She asked why Director Su was so agitated. Could it be that he is afraid of losing to their academy? Director Su coldly remarked that Director Zhu should not be here, and pointed out that she should be in her preparation area. Director Zhu wanted to hint at the protagonist's resemblance to someone famous, dismissively calling him just another Yening Shuang. At this moment, Yang Shuo quietly turned to Director Su, begging her to control herself. The hero simply watched this scene and thought about his own. The Empress's arrival was suddenly announced, causing a stir in the crowd. Director Zhu asked them to just wait a little longer. Soon she would make them return to their academy in disgrace. Director Su was in anticipation. She quickly switched over and ordered Xiao Xinyu, Murong Yangshuo, and Murong Xinxin to follow her to greet the Empress. A bright glowing light began to emerge through the opening ceiling. Looking up, one could see the clouds gathering. A new figure appeared on these clouds, Empress Shangguanlan, ruler of the Dragon State. Her arrival caused universal admiration and awe. Someone in the crowd exclaimed enthusiastically that this was the most beautiful and powerful woman in the country. She is the most powerful hunter in the Dragon State, and her mere presence evokes genuine awe. The Empress looked ahead seriously, expecting something important. Xiao Xinyu watched the Empress and her beast, assessing the gap in strength. She stepped with one foot onto the solid ground, her heel clanking loudly. Afterwards, she stood next to her beast, looking through the crowd and assessing it. The crowd rejoiced as soon as they saw the Empress so close. The protagonist noted her rank, the sign of the 11th star, the title of the Empress of Beasts, standing above all the hunters of the 10th star. He realized that between them there were not just a few stars, but a whole abyss. Using his skill, he probably tried to appraise her beast, the 7-colored sacred Qilin. The information he received was impressive. The form of a beast king. 3rd stage, purebred divine bloodline Qilin. Xiao accepted that the gap was too great, and even his dragon eye couldn't fully grasp the power. Xiao Xinyu turned to Dailu, reminded him that the Empress had ordered the capture of the 9-tailed fox, and asked how Dailu had managed to survive back then. He then suggested that Qilin was not Shangguanlan's only beast, and that she probably had other beasts under her command. Dailu confirmed his guess, mentioning that the Empress had real dragon power. Xiao Xinyu was shocked. Could it be that Shangguanlan has a purebred dragon? Didn't they become extinct more than 100 years ago? After all, according to the chronicles, only purebred dragons have divine origins. Moreover, dragons are definitely in first place in terms of strength, so why then is it precisely dragons that are hunted? The main question remained, if purebred dragons were extinct, then how was the Empress able to make a contract with one of them? Moreover, the Empress has one of the 3 greatest treasures of dragons, the dragon tear. The day of the first fight arrived. Director Su announced to Xiao Xinyu that, according to the draw, he would go first. The battle began solemnly, with Lin Tianxi, the son of the Tiger Guild leader, speaking from the White Tiger Academy. From the opposite side came a candidate from the Azure Dragon Academy, a talented beast hunter from the lower classes, Xiao Xinyu. Without a moment's hesitation, Xiao Xinyu summoned his loyal beast, Black Fang, to the battlefield. The enemy, Lin Tianxi, responded by summoning his beast, the Red Snake. Yang Shuo, standing next to his sister, noted that the snake possessed the sand attribute, making it a natural enemy for Black Fang. It has been suggested that when opponents of equal level fight, the deciding factor is not pedigree at all. Lin Tianxi ordered his snake to use the Hurricane Blade skill, while Xiao Xinyu ordered Black Fang to use Hell Howl. The confrontation between the rival animals began. Xinyu Wolf was determined to tear this snake apart. The enemy, Lin Tianxi, feeling superior, declared that the advantage was clearly not on Xiao Xinyu's side, and that he was doomed to defeat. However, Xiao Xinyu was not about to give up. He calmly remarked that today was a bit too humid, but he immediately declared that the battle had only just begun, and this was just a warm-up. He warned that now he only needed 2 attacks to turn the tide of the battle, to which Lin Tianxi reacted with disbelief. Xiao Xinyu immediately took action, commanding his beast to use Hell Howl towards the sky. Black Fang emitted a powerful sonic boom directed upward. The spectators were perplexed. Someone suggested that he wanted to melt the sand, but the fire of his beast was too weak for this. The Empress simply said no, dismissing the idea, which raised the question of what he was planning then. Xiao Xinyu was clearly preparing some unexpected tactics. The Empress suggested that perhaps the hero wanted to take advantage of the 7-colored clouds she had summoned. His opponent looked at Xiao in surprise, not understanding what he was planning. With fear in his voice and on his face, he realized that the boy had summoned rain. He immediately ordered his snake to stop him immediately. However, the protagonist, with a triumphant look, said that it was too late. Tianqi had missed his chance. The opponent cursed, saying that the sand was wet and his beast could no longer create sand whirlwinds and hurricane blades. The protagonist's wolf rushed forward at the words of its master. Xiao Xinyu gave the final order that would decide the outcome of the battle, the Hellfire Lotus. Black Fang used his most powerful skill, The attack was successful. It was indeed in the shape of a lotus. The snake could not object or attack in response. The enthusiastic spectators declared that Xiao Xinyu had really done it, that he had turned the tide of the battle with just 2 attacks. The audience recognized the genius of his tactics, and some enthusiastically remarked on what a brilliant idea it was to use artificial rain. The Empress praised his precise timing and resourcefulness. Meanwhile, the assistant reported to Empress Shangguanlan that they had checked Xiao Xinyu's background and found nothing suspicious. The Empress, after listening to the report, decided to let him receive the first invitation to the Imperial Soul Training Camp. On the battlefield, Xiao Xinyu was greeted as a hero. Yang Shou exulted, declared that it was an easy victory and an excellent move, praising him for a good fight. Director Su continued, promising to definitely reward him for his magnificent fight, to which Xiao Xinyu jokingly asked them not to forget about it when they returned. Suddenly, Dailu told Xiao Xinyu that she could smell the phoenix grass. She expressed surprise because this grass grows on the western border. Murong Xingxin asked if he would watch the next fight. Xiao Xinyu replied that he had already finished, so there was nothing more for him to do. Murong Yangshu said that now it was his turn to fight, perhaps hoping for his support. Xiao Xinyu, ignoring his brother's jealousy, apologized to Xinxin, saying that he really had things to do. Liujin, with a slight sadness, suggested going somewhere after the tournament. He quickly agreed and ran away. Meanwhile, the start of the second battle was announced. The participant from the Azure Dragon Academy would be Xinxin. Xiao Xinyu left the arena and walked out onto the streets of Xiling City. He was amazed by the huge crowd of people, and realized that all these people had come to welcome the army returning from the borders. A solemn procession moved towards him. The city's residents warmly greeted the soldiers and addressed the high-ranking commander. Watching this, Xiao Xinyu used his dragon eye to assess the mighty beast of one of the generals, the Imperial Rhinoceros. The information was astounding. The form of a beast king, the second stage, the bloodline of a mythical-level battle monster. Xiao Xinyu looked at Dailu with admiration, pointing at the 8-star Beastmaster with the ultimate beast. He wondered how many deadly trials they had gone through together, and Dailu replied that she knew about them. She explained, returning to her original purpose, that the phoenix grass grows on the Legu Glacier in the west, where there are many magical beasts. Xiao Xinyu replied skeptically, as if it was that simple. But at that moment he noticed something strange. The beast of the warlord, the ruler of the western city Zhouxiong, was limping. Xiao Xinyu wondered what was wrong with it. He watched the fighting rhino closely, trying to understand the reason for his lameness. Xiao Xinyu approached King Zhouxiong and declared that his war rhinoceros was sick and that he could cure it. Zhouxiong was skeptical, noticing the Azure Dragon Academy uniform, and what he, the same age as his son, could possibly know about healing. Then Xiao Xinyu introduced himself as a visiting physician from the Heaven Guild, and described the symptoms, which amazed Zhouxiong with its accuracy. He admitted that he had come back specifically to find medicine for his beast, and that Xiao Xinyu had not yet earned his trust. He demanded to know the cause of the illness. Xiao Xinyu confidently stated that everything was simple, and showed the cause, the sand mantle. The hero was now holding this sand-bound parasite on his hand. Zhouxiong was impressed, admitting that many doctors had failed to help over the years, and asked how Xiao Xinyu planned to treat him. Xiao Xinyu suggested finding a less crowded place since he needed some herbs, and Zhou agreed to invite him to his home. Xiao Xinyu thought to himself that it seemed like he would not only get the phoenix grass, but also make some useful connections. Meanwhile, the two moved to Zhou's residence. The hero recited the ingredients he needed: silver lotus petals, sacred grass, poria, and a secret ingredient. After preparing it, he handed Zhou the purple soul extract, a special medicine for treating sand mantic. Mr. Zhou replied that it was enough to delay. He trusted him. That's why he immediately gave the contents to his beast to drink. For a while, the hero and the master simply stood over the rhinoceros, looking at him. But after a couple of minutes, the effect was already noticeable. Mr. Zhou said that his beast had not slept like this for a long time, and called the guy a great healer. To which Xinyu replied that he could give him a recipe so that he could treat combat soldiers. Zhou asked what he wanted in return. The hero immediately said that he needed the phoenix herb and the magical radiance flower, and emphasized that this was all he needed. When invited to stay for tea, the guy admitted that he had sneaked out, and that by now his son had most likely finished the fight. The gentleman, hearing this, offered to go with him, as he had long wanted to visit the Empress. Here the main character is already at the tournament at the Academy, where a tense duel is taking place between Zhou Ye and Murong Xinxin. The commentator announces that the battle has reached its climax and has been going on for a whole hour without a clear winner. Liu Jin's opponent, Zhou Ye, addresses her, noting that she is clearly at a disadvantage, and asks why she is fighting so hard. He also notices that she seems distracted from the start, and asks what is distracting her. She is worried why Xiao Xinyu hasn't returned yet. If he finds out about her defeat, she will be terribly ashamed. This thought makes her gather herself. Suddenly Xinyu's voice was heard from the stands. He asked if she still had spiritual energy. The protagonist analyzes the condition of the fighters. Both of them are almost on the verge of exhaustion, which is both good and bad news for both sides. The first battle beast, Liu Jin, the Snow Wing Hunter, enters the arena. In response, Zhou Ye summons his beast, the demonic wolf of darkness, also in its mature form, the second stage. With the appearance of the beasts, the final battle begins. Liu Jin, having gathered his strength, proclaims that winter will come. Zhou Ye uses his Dark Demon Wolf's ability, Shadow Clone. All 12 clones gather to attack the Snow Wing Hunter and Liu Jin at the same time. There is a growl and an intense fight. The clones' shadows surround the target, creating a tense and dangerous situation in the arena. But the beast Jinshin was not one to be timid either, and he deftly attacked his opponents. Someone from the crowd was outraged by this vile technology, because these clones could barely be distinguished from the original. Finding himself surrounded by shadow clones, Liu Jin decides he has to take a risk. The main character began to breathe heavily, coughing demonstratively. Jinshin didn't immediately understand the hint, so the guy continued his actions. The girl turned around, looking questioningly at Xiao Xinyu. Then she looked at the pack of clones growling angrily at her. She thought that the guy was hinting at something to her. Her gaze caught on one wolf, who was breathing strangely heavily, as if he was already tired. The audience sees the Snow Wing Hunter appear to be performing some sort of maneuver, which could be taken as a hint at a special tactic. Encouraged by this, Liu Jin commands her beast with renewed vigor, launching a counterattack. He hit the original wolf right on target. The enemy couldn't believe what had happened. He ordered the demonic wolf to move the clones, thinking that his opponent was lucky. However, his plans were not crowned with success. The announcer's triumphant voice announces the long-awaited end, with Murong Xinshin emerging as the winner of this fight. After her victory, people come up to Liu Jin to congratulate her, and her brother says that she is simply the best. But when Xiao Xinyu praises the girl, saying that she performed well, it causes a storm of emotions in Yang Shuo. He indignantly asked Xiao Xinyu what he had done to his sister, and began calling out to him, clearly intending to express his dissatisfaction. The hero, answering Yang Shuo's question, modestly says that he did nothing special, he just hinted. Zhou Ye approached Director Zhu guiltily, saying that he had also lost. She was so furious that she even broke her half-smoked cigarette in half. The director announced a meeting after lunch to discuss tactics, and demanded that everyone give their all and train until they dropped. Zhou Ye's father admits that his son still has much to learn, and praises General Murong's daughter for her insight. However, the Empress exposes this modesty, claiming that Zhou Ye is pretending, and that he himself knows that Liu Jin received a hint. Zhou Ye's father turned to the Empress, falling on his knees, begging her not to punish the offenders and to give them another chance. The Empress announces that Zhou Ye, Murong Xinshin, and Xiao Xinyu have proven themselves worthy, and will receive an invitation to the Emperor's Soul Camp. Later, Yang Shuo reacts with hostility when Xinyu overfamiliarly calls him brother, and invites him to a barbecue hosted by Director Su. Meanwhile, Xiao Xinyu and Liu Jin are presented with their invitations to the Emperor's Soul Camp. Yang Shuo, upon learning of this, is delighted, as this is an elite program for the best first-year students, run by the Empress herself. Xiao Xinyu is impressed by the opportunity to personally study with the Empress, but he is overcome with doubt and fear, bound by a bloody contract with Dailu. He knew that if they were discovered, the consequences could be terrible. But while he was thinking about it, he didn't notice how a girl approached him. Liu Jin, seeing Xiao Xinyu's concern, interrupts his heavy thoughts by reminding him of their agreement about the barbecue. Xiao Xinyu agrees, and the conversation at the barbecue turns to food. The meat crackled pleasantly on the grill, spreading a pleasant aroma throughout the entire establishment. Xiao Xinyu is surprised that Yang Shuo and Liu Jin, being from an elite clan, do not disdain street food. Yang Shuo replies that the 4 great clans are not monks, and he and his sister eat not only boiled meat, but also popular folk dishes. The girl ate her food with gusto, spying on the boys every now and then. The hero suddenly remembered how his youngest asked what Yutiao was, saying that he thought all the descendants of great clans were accustomed to luxury. Liu Jin, perhaps due to the awkward situation, sighs heavily. Xiao Xinyu asks her if something is wrong, to which she replies that she is just annoyed by her older brother. Then the main character says that the girl is just tense, so he offers to give her a massage. After all, he is a doctor. The dynamic between Yang Shuo and Xinyu becomes tense. Yang Shuo seriously threatens to kill the guy. The hero in response offers to drink 3 penalty drinks. Yang Shuo indignantly replies that it is not alcohol, but some kind of water, meaning that the drinks are too weak. Xiao Xinyu asks for something stronger, adding chaos to the already hilarious scene. This request was immediately fulfilled. A box of strong drinks was already standing on the boys' table. Yang Shuo, already in the mood for drinking, challenges Xiao Xinyu, declaring that he will outdrink him. Otherwise, his name is not Murong Yang Shuo. Late that night, Yang Shuo was already clearly drunk, and had also suffered alcohol poisoning, which the boys witnessed with their own eyes. Xinyu asks him if he's okay and if he'll drink more. Yang Shuo, trying to save face, mumbles that he still can. While Yang Shuo suffers from the after effects of his drinking, Xiao Xinyu humorously remarks to Liu Jin that her brother has gotten drunk and finally accepted him as his son-in-law. Liu Jin, apologizing for his brother's presence, says that it wasn't as fun as he would have liked and suggests going for a walk sometime. Xiao Xinyu reminds them that there is a team tournament tomorrow and suggests meeting the day after tomorrow. However, Yang Shuo mumbles incoherently, apparently trying to object to their plans, but his words are lost, and he finally gives up. Now the protagonist is lying on his bed and emphasizes that he already has the Phoenix Herb, and the Flower of Magical Radiance should be brought soon. The last and most difficult component, the dung of a magical beast, remained to be obtained. He expressed concern about how to do this. Having decided that the morning is wiser than the evening, the guy lay down to rest. A symbol that glowed red began to appear on Xiao Xinyu's hand. The next morning, Xiao Xinyu wakes up Dailu. He sleepily asks what happened. Dailu looks worried. Xiao Xinyu was startled, and he cursed unconsciously. He asks her with horror why she got out on her own, and worries whether the Empress's people saw her. Xiao Xinyu, sighing with relief after the girl's answer, said that he almost died of fear, and his heart almost jumped out of his chest. At this point, Dailu sheepishly clarifies whether it is from his or her chest. Then the guy touched the fox's chest. Xiao Xinyu apologizes, saying that his hand slipped. Afterwards, the guy reproached Dela for leaving the trapper's mark without permission, and asked what she had learned. Dailu reports disturbing news. The Dragon State Fleet Admiral, Murong Jin, has captured Medusa, the spiritual serpent of disaster. She predicts that, given the methods of the Dragon State, she will certainly be executed in 3 days, on the full moon. Xiao Xinyu notes that it was no wonder that Murong Jin, the admiral, was able to defeat such a beast. Then he guesses that Dailu is going to save her. She confirms this by revealing the reason. Medusa has information that the Empress participated in the battle to exterminate the dragons. He points to an incredible danger, an underground prison at the fleet headquarters, patrolled by 1,000 high-level beast hunters. At the headquarters itself are the 10th star hunters who control the beasts with the blood of the sea god, not to mention the admiral himself. The hero calls the plan suicide for both of them. Dailu, seeing his resistance, affectionately calls him master, trying to soften him. Despite his decision, Xiao Xinyu is tasked with infiltrating the naval headquarters and rescuing Medusa to uncover the secret of the Empress's involvement. In a rage, he curses the one who gave him this task, calling him a sadist. But his thoughts turn to his sister. She may suffer. Deciding to take a risk, he turns to Dial and announces that he has decided to go with her to free Medusa. Dailu, happy and grateful, exclaims that she is very happy and thanks him. Xiao Xinyu sees the news confirming Medusa's execution in 3 days and asks Dailu why they chose that day. Dailu explains that spirit snakes have special blood. If you cut off their heads on a full moon, you can get a whole magic crystal. Xiao Xinyu ironically calls the 2nd star trapper's plan to escape from a prison teeming with powerful fighters madness. With a sigh, he tells Dailu to return to the beast hunter's mark. Xiao Xinyu replies that today's tournament needs to be dealt with first. Everyone arrived at the tournament site, a pond with red water that looked like blood. Xiao Xinyu comments with disgust that it looks like real blood, and asks why they chose that particular location. The hero comments that this is a cruel test. If you lose, you will be left without skin, and also wonders with interest what is in the water. Using his senses, he senses the dragon's power. It became clear that there were dragon bones at the bottom of the lake. He realizes that letting the beast swallow them would be tantamount to evolution. So I started thinking about how to get them out of there. However, his thoughts are interrupted by a warning that he needs to be extremely careful, as there will be viewers watching the broadcast. The team battle begins. The host welcomes the audience. The camera was installed, and the live broadcast started immediately. The host announced that the 6 remaining participants would face off in a fierce battle, and wondered who would emerge victorious. Xiao Xinyu collected his thoughts, and realized that most likely his sisters were also watching him now. He tells himself that Liu Jin is right, and he must show his sister and the others what he is capable of. With these words, he rushes into battle, calling upon his beast, Black Fang. The team members summon their beasts, the White Griffin. The Bone-Winged Wyvern was also already ready. One of the guys started shouting that he would finally show the results of countless training sessions. After these words, he summoned his beast, the Red Snake. Zhou Ye, in turn, summoned a demonic wolf of darkness. However, the main character notices something strange. One of the participants does not summon his beast, although he looked absolutely calm and confident. Xiao Xinyu, deciding to take advantage of this, decides to strike first before the opponents have time to summon all of their beasts. The owner of the White Griffin gives the command to attack. A rapid fight begins, while the guy who did not call his beast still stands inactive. The protagonist shouts to brother Yang Shuo to be careful. However, something unexpected happens. The enemy, who had not previously summoned a beast, suddenly reveals his power. Yang Shuo couldn't believe what he just saw with his own eyes. Xin is surprised to recognize this ability. It is a shadow ninja monkey, which obviously indicates a powerful and rare beast. This beast is capable of instantly teleporting several times in a row within a limited area. Yang Shuo explains the beast's abilities, realizing that this guy is not so simple. The fight is heating up. The enemy is using the red snake and its hurricane blade attack. The demonic dark wolf uses the shadow clone ability again, creating multiple clones and reducing visibility. Yang Shuo, unable to see anything, asks his sister, who has already fought this wolf, if she can handle it herself. Liu Jin explains that he only lost because of the protracted fight, and orders Zhou Ye to have the wolf focus on the underworld wolf. Meanwhile, Xiao Xinyu commands his beast to not stop and break through the sandstorm. He repeated these words again and again, just so that Black Fang would hear him and do as he wanted. The wolf, of course, heard his master, and began to carry out his order. The Shadow Monkey's owner uses the Dark Shuriken attack. Xiao Xinyu responds by ordering his Black Cube to use its Dark Hunting ability. He was able to quickly hide from the shurikens flying at him using this ability. Xiao Xinyu tells Liu Jin that everything is fine, and that he foresaw this scenario. Yang Shuo is outraged that the opponents are meanly focusing all their attacks on Xiao Xinyu. Liu Jin agrees that they must stop them. The White Griffin unleashes a bolt of heavenly lightning, attempting to destroy the shadow clones, but its attack is met with resistance. The wolves weren't going to lose just like that either. Suddenly, the enemy's shadow ninja monkey enters the fray, raining shurikens down on Xiao Xinyu's position. However, a loyal ally, the bone-winged wyvern, immediately rises to the defense, reflecting the deadly blades. The guy who had been standing in the shadows all this time suddenly said that Xiao Xinyu's star would be the first to go out today, to which the hero responded skeptically, could this really happen? Under Xiao Xinyu's command, his Black Fang activated its hidden power, absorbing the shadow and activating its gloomy ability. The enemies watch in horror as all the wounds of the Hell Wolf, which had just been viciously attacked, heal completely. The main character, fiddling with his fingers, said that everything was just beginning. The battle host announces that the spectators have witnessed true demonic power. The enemy notes with alarm the incredible healing effect that leaves no chance. However, it doesn't end there. The second phase of Black Fang's ability begins, and the enemy beasts retreat in panic. They are affected not only by physical but also by overwhelming mental influences. It came from the restored wolf and its owner. Xiao Xinyu orders his Black Fang to prepare to use his most powerful move, the Hellfire Lotus. The audience is shocked to realize that the skill of one beast combines 4 attributes at once: fire, wind, darkness, and demonic power. The delighted presenter announces that the Lotus of Hellfire is a technique that amazes with its incredible power. This was also understood by Yang Shuo, who was watching what was happening with delight. The protagonist's beast carried out all orders perfectly and used its abilities. The enemy, realizing the seriousness of the threat, orders his red snake to use the Hurricane Stone. Everything was done to try to extinguish the flaring hellfire, but it is becoming clear that stopping this attack will be difficult. The red snake Hurricane Stone, imbued with the element of earth, collides with the Hellfire Lotus. But, to the enemy's amazement, he cannot suppress it. The remark that elemental superiority loses all meaning in the face of absolute power is mocking. Xiao Xinyu gives his final command to Black Fang to blow everyone up. A multi-attribute attack, Hellfire Lotus reaches its peak power and crashes down on enemies, causing a deafening explosion. The result is a complete rout of the enemy team. Their beasts and tactics are no match for the overwhelming force. Xin recalled that yesterday, Xiao Xinyu really hadn't fought at full strength. Turning to his defeated opponents, he asks with disdain if everyone in the White Tiger Academy is really that weak. His words infuriate the enemy team leader, who, holding back his emotions, reminds his teammates not to give in. They were going to continue with the original plan, giving it their all in the upcoming fight. The opponents gathered their courage after Xiao Xinyu's words. Their animals were also ready, seeing the determination of their owners. Despite all this, Black Fang was confident in his strength and stood alone against his opponents. The guy from the enemy said that they were preparing their most powerful coordinated attack. He was sure that no one could withstand such a blow. However, Xiao Xinyu, after hearing the threat, only with a cold-blooded smile challenges him to whether he is confident in his words. His confidence is unshaken, and he demonstrates a readiness not only to withstand, but to repel any attack. The opponent watched the outcome of events with his mouth open in confusion. The flames emanating from the Hell Wolf concentrate and form a shining armor around him. The enemy is confused about this technique, the second one answers. This ability not only absorbs attacks, but also converts damage into energy. Everyone is shocked and wonders how the guy is capable of such a thing, while he himself notes that his opponents seem to have missed the most important thing. At the most critical moment of a powerful enemy attack, an unexpected turn occurs. The Murong siblings' beasts suddenly disappear from the battlefield, their comrade panickingly exclaiming that they are from above. It turns out that Xiao Xinyu's allies, the Murong siblings, pulled off a clever maneuver by taking to the air. All the enemy beasts gathered again to fight to the last. The monkey began to frantically look around, sensing danger. The shadow ninja monkey is trapped and in danger of being thrown out of the arena. All this could have happened thanks to the bone-winged Viverena. Therefore, the enemy is forced to urgently summon his second beast, which was a stone giant. In order to save his comrade, he was forced to come to the order of the master. Xiao Xinyu is pleased that they have finally managed to force the enemy to summon the fourth beast, and summons his Freya. Her appearance on the battlefield was supposed to instantly change the atmosphere and foreshadow an even more furious phase of the confrontation. The opponent did not immediately recognize Freya. He gave the order to use the skill to his giant, but the girl quickly found a rebuff to the stone giant's ability to wield a fist of great power. The enemy beast stood, waiting to receive the next command. The enemy is shocked to recognize the summoned Freya as the sacred angel of the luminaries from the books, but cannot believe that the beast is capable of resisting him. To this mockery, Xinyu calmly replies that his beast is much stronger than they can imagine. At this moment, the first serious result is announced. He was carried out immediately after the recent explosion had died down. Thanks to Xiao Xinyu's actions in preventing the beast from being rescued, the enemy's shadow ninja monkey, Yang Heng, is knocked out of the battle. The entire team's thoughts are interrupted by the menacing roar of the wolf of the underworld. Xiao Xinyu himself, addressing his Black Fang, tells him not to interfere. He wanted Freya to show her abilities. These words only cause the enemy to be indignant and ridiculed that a beast in its initial form could show anything against his giant. The enemy, outraged by the insolence, orders his red snake to teach everyone a lesson. However, the snake's attack proves ineffective against Freya. Seeing this, the enemy panics and orders the stone giant to cover the red snake, realizing that the situation is getting out of control. In this tense moment, Freya demonstrates her true power, preparing for a counterattack that disproves all doubts about her abilities. Freya makes an incredibly fast and powerful movement that the audience and even the cameraman cannot see with the naked eye. At the presenter's request, a slow-motion replay was included, but even slowing it down 1,000 times barely allows one to grasp the essence of the technique. A colossal battle broke out on the battlefield. The giant slammed his massive foot down on the ground, causing a slight shaking. The cameraman, in a panic, tried to capture everything as carefully as possible. The protagonist explains that Freya mastered this skill on her own, and its name is Lightning Dash. The blow is so crushing that even the mighty stone giant can hardly withstand it. Enemies Yan Heng and his comrade are in complete confusion as they discuss what to do against such a force, but find no answer. Xiao Xinyu asks his opponents with a slight smile how they like the Lightning Dash. Despite the shock, the enemy leader tries to remain calm, assuring them that such a technique cannot be used often, and they have a chance. His comrade Yan Heng responds by summoning his second beast, the Thunder Rhinoceros. The enemy declares that he will not give in a second time, and calls upon the tireless strength of the indomitable gray fox. The fox was now left standing in the fire. Sister Yangshuo quietly called out to him, and seeing this, he encouraged him, saying that she couldn't leave him to fight alone. Xinyu orders Freya to use her maximum speed and knock the Thunder Rhino out of the arena, seeking to quickly eliminate the new threat. However, the enemy does not intend to allow this to happen and throws his stone giant to intercept. A tense battle begins, in which Xiao Xinyu's allies, the Murong brother and sister, their animals receive clear commands to detain their opponents. They enter the fray to hamper the other enemy beasts and prevent them from interfering with the crucial duel between Freya and the Thunder Rhino. They are trying to create a tactical advantage for their team. Although it doesn't look so easy, no one resists and fights to the end. One of the opponents admits to his comrade that he has almost no spiritual energy left. But Zhou notices that Xiao Xinyu still has enough of it. Yan Heng confirms that he is also at his limit and only has enough strength for one last technique. Inspired by this, they decide to use their signature technique, seeing it as their last chance to win. Xiao Xinyu, instantly assessing the situation, warns Liu Jin and Yang Shuo that their spiritual strength is running out. They will try to strike the last and most powerful blow. He calls on his allies to gather all their resolve. The opponents initiate their final, coordinated attack, the Red Snake using the Hurricane Blade. The demonic Wolf of Darkness directs the ability of the Shadow Clone at the Stone Giant, increasing its power. Xiao Xinyu and his team, on alert, react instantly to the threat. A decisive command is given from Yang Heng that it is time to attack, and both sides simultaneously throw forward all their remaining forces. An epic, decisive battle begins, in which the outcome of the entire match hangs in the balance. Each participant gives their all to turn the tide of the battle in their favor. The giants fell and got up several times, not having time to watch as the wolf disappeared from under their noses. The enemy looked at them, trying to somehow tell them what to do. But it was all in vain. Their rivals' animals acted together, so they had a lot of advantages. In the midst of the final clash, when the enemy attack reaches its peak, Xiao Xinyu gives the decisive order. He orders his loyal wolf of the underworld, Black Fang, to finish them off. In response, his allies, the Murong siblings, give it their all. The Bonewing Wyvern unleashes Hellfire, and the White Griffin unleashes the full might of its lightning. They coordinate their efforts, transferring all their accumulated energy to the wolf of the underworld to strengthen his final blow. Also to bring down all the accumulated power on the enemy in one crushing throw. The majestic wolf of the underworld, having absorbed the energy of its allies, rushes forward to meet the enemy attack. An incredible clash of forces occurs, illuminating the entire arena with a blinding flash. The power of a coordinated attack from the enemy is met with an equal response. A powerful stream of energy flies straight towards the target. The clones of the stone giant fall dead. They couldn't even resist the attack. After a moment of blinding light and a deafening roar, the wave of energy dissipates. The remains of the enemy animals are visible, scattered throughout the area. The arena falls silent, shrouded in swirling dust and residual energy. Everyone is holding their breath in anticipation of the outcome of this decisive battle. The dust clears, and the results of the battle become visible in the arena. The entire team of enemy beasts lies defeated. The leader of their group is shocked to hear that they have lost. Xiao Xinyu's side was jubilant, victory was certain, and the host announced that the Azure Dragon Academy had won. The protagonist happily shouts to Liujin that they succeeded, and she, tired but happy, agrees. The girl's brother shouts at the guy in a rage, asking if he's being too brazen to grope his sister. One of the defeated opponents, showing respect, admitted defeat. He told Xiao Xinyu that he really was a monster, and that this time they had lost fairly and without question. Xiao Xinyu agreed that it was fair and thanked him for the compliment with a slight smile. The White Tiger Academy's director, Zhu Qingyu, approached Director Su with a fake smile to congratulate him on his victory. Director Su responded with the same false politeness, claiming that it was only because of her that the entire country was talking about their academy. Director Zhu continued to tease him, advising Director Su to keep a closer eye on his star student. Director Su retorted confidently, asking if she was thinking of poaching his student and if she was up to the task. At this moment, Director Su called out to Xiao Xinyu, asking him to come over for a minute. Xiao Xinyu reacted to her call with surprise. Director Su defiantly declared that after all, she had saved Xiao Xinyu's life. Of course, he would take her side. Director Su could barely contain his anger, and the guy asked her to control herself, reminding her that they were on live television. At that moment, they were actually watching the live broadcast on TV. These were the main character's sisters. The eldest, beside herself, mentally called the director a vile bitch. The night was quiet after the victory celebration. Xiao Xinyu, Liujin, and Murong Yangshuo were relaxing at the bar. Xiao Xinyu, who was already noticeably drunk, claimed that he was not drunk yet and offered to have another drink. Liujin decided that it would be better for him to sleep it off and said that it was time for them to leave. After Liujin and Murong Yangshuo left, Xiao Xinyu opened his eyes slightly. He was not drunk. I decided to call Dela. He said that they needed to go to the Lake of the Fallen Dragon. Dailu, having appeared, was surprised, saying that he had gotten drunk and asked where he was going in the middle of the night. Xiao Xinyu replied that he had figured out how to save the jellyfish and that he needed her to come with him. Dailu took his words seriously. Xiao Xinyu explained his plan. He said that in order to escape, she needed to evolve. Xiao Xinyu explained that if she absorbed the dragon bone and combined her blood with the dragon's, she would be able to break through and evolve. Xiao Xinyu countered her doubts by saying that if he had a way. Dailu repeated his words about evolving into a nine-tailed dragon lion with irony and disbelief, and asked if he was joking. Despite her doubts, Xiao Xinyu seemed to be full of determination. We see that the city is already shrouded in darkness and heavy rain. But this did not stop the guys from setting off on their journey right away. He brought Dela to a place called the Fallen Dragon Lake, which has a deep connection with dragons. A heavy downpour began, which Xiao Xinyu believed would reduce the chances of being spotted. He asked Dela to protect him with foxfire, and when he went down into the water, he would show her the way. The girl, swimming with him, asked where exactly the dragon bones were located. Xiao Xinyu began giving instructions, asking Dailu to dive a little to the left. He then corrected the course, saying that they were off course and now needed to go to the right, and indicated that the target was at the bottom of the lake, about 300 meters away. Dailu confirmed that she saw something. She discovered something amazing at the bottom of the lake. It was the dragon's heartbone, the smallest but densest and hardest part of the dragon. The fox was amazed by Xiao Xinyu's knowledge, wondering if he was really only 18 years old. Xiao Xinyu, having received the bone, proposed a plan. He told Dale that when they got to the shore, they would immediately go into the forest to merge. He noted that there are many predatory animals there, but at least no one will disturb them. Dailu agreed with his plan and they moved on. The girl asked how exactly he was going to help her become a nine-tailed dragon fox, having a dragon bone in his hands. Xiao Xinyu asked her to take her time and said that he would give her one thing. He took out an object that made Dailu astonished. Xinyu noted with slight irony that he was the boss here, and simply ordered him to take it. Then he took out another protective pearl. He also said that this was a very risky undertaking, and if the fusion with the dragon's blood failed, she would face a significant decrease in strength or health. Dailu, encouraging him, asked if he hadn't said that he wanted to become the greatest trapper, and since when had his master become so indecisive? Her own words ignited determination in Dailu. She continued that from the moment she agreed to go with him to the lake, everything was already decided. Xiao Xinyu, moved by her speech, apologized for his doubts and told her to prepare for the merger. Dailu gathered her courage and was ready to begin the dangerous process. The merger process has begun. Dailu absorbed the dragon bone and the blood fusion crystal. The energy released inside her was incredibly powerful and painful. Initially, she tried to endure the pain inside, but not much time passed. The fox could no longer restrain herself. She screamed that her body was burning and that it was unbearable. Her body was enveloped in a glow mixed with fiery and draconic energies. This was evidence of the incredible tension and transformation taking place within her. Xiao Xinyu, watching her suffering, encouraged her. He said that the blood fusion crystal had begun to take effect and urged her to hold on, assuring her that she could handle it. Despite the unbearable pain, Dailu continued to fight, her will not being broken. She looked at the glowing city, where life was in full swing. At the signs where the Empress was visible, Xiao Xinyu continued to support Dailu, seeing the fear in her eyes. He reminded her of what she had just said about her goals. He warned her that if she failed, everything would be lost. Dailu weakly uttered the word master, seeking support in him. Xiao Xinyu made a promise to her full of determination. He said that he would help her become stronger, help her take revenge, and promised that he would be by her side. These words seemed to give Dailu new strength. She let out a powerful scream, releasing the accumulated energy. Then there was a sudden silence. The light went out and the dust settled. Xiao Xinyu anxiously asked if it was a hole and called out to Dailu. He looked anxiously at the place where she was, and from the cloud of dust and energy, a new, majestic figure appeared. The process of fusion and evolution was completed successfully. Xiao Xinyu exclaimed with relief and joy that she had finally succeeded. Dailu stood before him, but now she was transformed. She evolved into a nine-tailed dragon fox, her appearance becoming more powerful and menacing, combining the traits of a fox and a dragon. 9 tails glowed with energy, and her aura emitted incredible power. She suddenly appeared on top of the protagonist. Despite her success, Dailu looked exhausted after the ordeal. Breathing heavily, she turned to Xiao Xinyu with a slight reproach. After being told that he spoke as if it was a marriage proposal, Xiao Xinyu hesitated in embarrassment, trying to deny the romantic connotation of his words. However, Dailu, now in her new, powerful form, playfully asked him to say it again. Sometime later, Xiao Xinyu noted the clear weather and his disappointment that he was apparently not destined to become a great magician. He reflected on his mistake, admitting that he knew that dragon blood strengthened beasts. But he forgot that a dragon was lustful by nature. He lamented that he was only a human and how could he fight the 9-tailed dragon. Then Dailu, already in her usual form, appeared next to him. She reproachfully called Xiao Xinyu a scoundrel. Xiao Xinyu, justifying himself, replied that in fact he was the injured party here. Dailu scolded herself with annoyance. Xiao Xinyu coughed and asked her to put her clothes on, noting that it was indecent to walk around naked. Dailu replied sarcastically that the owner not only saw, but had already done everything possible, and now decided to act like a gentleman. Xiao Xinyu tried to take control of the situation, saying that they were both adults, so he wanted to offer some kind of rational approach to what had happened. However, Dailu cut him off abruptly, yelling at him to get lost, clearly not wanting to continue this conversation at the moment. Xiao Xinyu, trying to smooth over the awkwardness, congratulated Dailu on his perfect breakthrough and successful evolution. He joked that a fox of discord ran between them. Dailu, examining herself, was surprised to discover dragon horns on her head, a visible sign of her new nature, and all her injuries had healed. Then, using his dragon eye, Xiao Xinyu assessed her new parameters. She was now a 9-tailed dragon fox of the first stage of the Beast King form, with a mythical bloodline. Xiao Xinyu noted with admiration that she was the first summoned beast in the world who had managed to absorb the blood of a purebred dragon. Xiao Xinyu moved on to discussing a serious plan. He explained that the prison where the jellyfish was being held was very well guarded, and they would only be able to rescue it on the ice island in 2 days. They have only one chance. If they fail, they will have to retreat, abandon the rescue of the jellyfish, and flee the execution site. Dailu asked a reasonable question. He is only a 2nd-star hunter. How is he going to compete with those who have a 9th star? Xiao Xinyu replied that he had one way, but he needed dragon elixir, and for certain reasons he would have to prepare it himself. Then he turned to Dale with a request, since the blood of the dragon now flows through her, and asked her to give him some. Dailu, determined to help, replied that he could take as much as he needed, and that she would do everything in her power. Xiao Xinyu took blood from Dailu, but the girl did it too hard. The guy stopped her, saying that she shouldn't treat her body like that. She looked at him with concern as she said his name. Meanwhile, Xiao Xinyu received a message from Liu Jin. The message said that they should meet at 7 o'clock in the evening at the north gate of the night market, as the brother wanted to eat shashlik with him. Soon after, while in the city, Murong Yangshuo called out to Xiao Xinyu. Xiao Xinyu asked brother Yangshuo why they came so early. Murong Yan reluctantly replied that his sister insisted, and they were already tired of waiting. Xiao Xinyu apologized, saying that he had a hard night and overslept. He then turned to Liu Jin for help. He said he needed to get some special ingredients, but they were too expensive. Liujin immediately agreed to help. No problem. Xiao Xinyu, delighted, exclaimed that Liujin was such a sweetheart and that he adored her. Mu Rongyan, as zealous as ever, immediately responded by coughing and making a warning remark. Mu Rongyan, realizing that he was being left behind, quickly made up an excuse, saying that he still had some things to do today and would probably go. Before leaving, Mu Rongyan took Xiao Xinyu aside and warned him that while he was gone, he should watch himself around his sister. Then Mu Rongyan left, wishing them a good evening. Liujin said goodbye to her brother, telling him not to come back too late. After her brother left, Liujin and Xiao Xinyu continued to communicate. Xiao Xinyu gratefully asked Liujin to forgive her for having to spend so much. Then Liujin quietly asked Xiao Xinyu if he noticed anything. The main character thought to himself that she might be thinking about her image and wanted him to praise her. But he replied that he didn't notice anything, and the girl looked at him with annoyance. She looked after him with sadness, wondering if he really hadn't noticed anything. Then the guys continued their journey through the night city. Liujin was frightened by something and screamed loudly. The guy looked back, scared, and asked what had happened. It turned out that it was just an innocent black kitten. It was him that the girl was afraid of. She told the hero about it. Xinyu sat down next to Liujin and asked if she had sprained her ankle, and the girl replied that this often happened to her. Then, since the street was quite slippery, the main character offered to carry the girl, but she refused. The cat, watching all this, licked his paw, as if telling Liujin not to be naughty and to climb in quickly. She didn't resist for long, and soon the guy was carrying her on his back. The girl called out to the main character. She wanted to ask something, to which the guy replied, "What happened?" But their conversation was interrupted by the rain that had just started. Suddenly, the rain intensified into a downpour. Xiao Xinyu quickened his pace to avoid getting wet, and Liujin asked him to slow down. He explained that otherwise they would both get soaked to the skin. They finally reached the shelter, and Xiao Xinyu said with relief that they had finally arrived. Liujin sat on the bed and tried to come to her senses. Xiao Xinyu offers to help her, but she refuses, and when he jokingly offers to massage her ankle, she squeals. This was completely unexpected for her. Xiao Xinyu notices that this is the first time she has sprained her ankle because of a magical beast, which leaves her amazed. He explains that as a doctor he can treat both animals and people. Under his gaze, Liujin opens up and tells of a childhood trauma. At the age of 5, during a storm, she fell overboard and was almost eaten. Her father saved her, but at the cost of his own hand. This story reveals her deep emotional wound. Liujin considers her injury to be nothing compared to her father's sacrifice, and she anxiously thinks about the meeting with the general tomorrow. Xiao Xinyu advises her to take care of her leg so that she can recover in time for the finals, and gets ready to leave. Liujin stops him hesitantly. She asks for help getting to the bathroom because she has difficulty walking. Xiao Xinyu agrees to help without hesitation. In the bathroom, Liujin wonders if she was too direct in her request. It was still raining heavily outside, and it could be heard even inside the building. After leaving the shower, the girl still thinks about her behavior. Suddenly her brother, Yang Shuo, appears and asks worriedly about her leg. He explains that Xiao Xinyu asked him to come, but he himself went away on business. Yang Shuo, understanding more than he lets on, gently chides his sister. He knows she likes Xiao Xinyu, but he thinks she's overreacting. He admonishes her, saying that feelings can push her to rash actions, and she needs to learn to control them. Liujin only sighs. Xiao Xinyu in his laboratory summons his fire beast Dailu to help him prepare elixirs. Dailu asks why he didn't stay with Liujin. Xiao Xinyu answers evasively, suggesting that she think about it herself, but then gets down to business. He explains that they need to create at least 2 perfect dragon elixirs to increase their chances of survival. Dailu jokingly remarks that now it is impossible to even joke, but agrees to help. Together they begin the complex process of alchemy, and soon Xiao Xinyu announces that the elixir is ready. Tired after hard work, Xiao Xinyu tells Dailu that he will sleep for a while, and when he wakes up, they will set off. He falls asleep right in the laboratory. Dailu, his faithful fire beast, looks tenderly at his sleeping master. She quietly says words of gratitude to her master, but then quickly changes her mind and says, no, that he is hers. When Xiao Xinyu wakes up, he decisively declares that it is time to set out on a journey full of deadly dangers. Dailu, worried about him, tries to dissuade him, saying that he has no reason to risk his life for the sake of a summoned beast. However, Xiao Xinyu firmly stops her, saying that he has already said more than once that she is not just a summoned beast to him, but part of the family. Touched by Xiao Xinyu's words, Dailu says his name with feeling, and the guy adds that he is doing all this not only for her. The fox then changes the subject to matters at the academy, asking what to do about his absence for a few days. Xiao Xinyu explains that he said he was going to see his sister and should return home soon, after which Director Su gave him 3 whole days off. Morong Xingxian, hearing this, quietly said that she thought so. When she tries to leave, her brother stops her and asks where she is going. The girl replies that she feels unwell, will skip training and return to the hotel, and is allowed to leave. While the academy is busy, Xiao Xinyu and Dailu are discussing their upcoming trip. Xiao Xinyu suggests the fastest route, sailing directly from the Azure Beach to the island of ice and fire. Asks Dela if she can cover such a distance. Dailu replies, slightly offended, that she is a fox, not a shark, and that if she spends too much time in the water, she will become ill. When Xiao Xinyu asked what she was proposing then, Dailu decided to show him her own method, telling him to watch carefully. Dailu demonstrates his power or creates an energetic disturbance. Xiao Xinyu anxiously asks her to stop wasting energy. He warned her that with such manipulations she would only attract all the sea monsters. Dailu, however, answers with determination that this is exactly what she wants. Her plan works, and soon one of the creatures appears. This creature turns out to be a royal lava tiger whale, a magical beast of the form of a beast king at a certain stage. Dailu comments that he is strong, but he was unlucky to meet them, climbing on him. Dailu gives the command to take them to the island. As they sail, Dailu notices that Xiao Xinyu is worried about something and asks if he is nervous. Xiao Xinyu, in turn, asks a counter-question. Will she believe him if he says no? Xiao Xinyu confidently says that he does not regret his choice, and asks Dailu to wake him up when they reach the island. Looking at his sleeping master, Dailu thinks of him with tenderness and devotion. She was ready to do anything for this guy, and would protect him all her life. Meanwhile, at the main naval base, they watched what was happening. Murongjin concludes that Yangshuo and Xinxin are on the right path. Admiral Murongjin, observing the data, also reflects on Xiao Xinyu's talents. Suddenly, a man named Bai Yu appears at headquarters, and Admiral Murongjin asks in surprise what brought him here. Bai Yu explains that the execution of Medusa is a serious matter. The Empress is worried and sent him to oversee the process. Bai Yu asks him not to be stubborn and explains the situation. There is unrest on land. Sakurano cultists were trying to break through the border. When Murongjin asked if they already knew of his presence here, Bai Yu only gave a meaningful and mysterious smile. Murongjin believes that the presence of two generals, himself and the ground forces general, should deter the enemies from attacking. However, Bai Yu still wanted to put pressure on his subordinates, despite Murongjin's words not to do so. Then Murongjin, deciding it was time to begin, gave the order to bring the prisoner. The elevator rushed downwards at incredible speed. At the place of execution there was already a jellyfish, chained. In front of her stood a guillotine of impressive size. The general makes a speech, declaring that Medusa's crimes are countless, and that her survival to this day is a mercy of the Empress. Medusa herself, a magical beast of the Beastman class, she, known as the spiritual snake of disasters, indignantly asks again whether they are innumerable. Then she retorts with bitter irony that if she is considered a monster, then who is Shangguan Lan, who has more dirty secrets? Meanwhile, Dailu notes with alarm that Medusa is being guarded by two generals at once, and wonders how they will fight them. The main character suggests waiting a little longer, maybe a chance will appear. At this moment, they both notice that there is someone else nearby. Meanwhile, the general on the parade ground gives the order to prepare the execution weapon, a spear made from a dragon's fang. Facing death, Medusa cries out Shangguan Lan's name in despair. The jellyfish's life is about to end forever. She states that if she dies, Shangguan Lan's dark secrets will forever remain at the bottom of the sea. She also adds that sooner or later the sins she committed 200 years ago will come to light. While she is talking about the sins of 200 years ago, something unexpected suddenly happens on the parade ground. She was able to gather all her strength and is now taking decisive action. Releases a powerful ability called Spiritual Mist, creating instant confusion and cover. A sudden release of Spiritual Mist envelops the execution site, causing chaos. All subordinates are powerless to influence this mania. General Bai Yu, trying to resist the illusion, shouts that he must not inhale this fog. Its energy is also very powerful, so much so that it can tear trees out of the ground. People had been out of their minds for a long time, so they didn't react to anything that was happening. Medusa looked at all the chaos. She was pleased with her work. The general's subordinates stood frozen around her, and this warmed her soul. She lets out a long moan, still trying to break free from her bonds. Bai Yu admits that Medusa is incredible. Even in this situation, she can still use illusions. Medusa, taking advantage of the moment, turns to Bai Yu with a provocative question, asking if he has forgotten what happened to his family. Medusa's words infuriate Bai Yu, and he angrily yells at her to mind her own business, calling her a brat. At this moment, elsewhere in the base, other members of the Flame Alliance who have infiltrated inside find the electrical control room. They inform their accomplices that as soon as the power is cut off, they must begin to act. However, they are discovered by soldiers who order them to raise their hands, threatening to open fire. One of the Alliance members, realizing he has been ambushed, gives a desperate command to immediately detonate something, which results in a powerful explosion. The explosion raises the alarm and someone shouts that the prison is under attack. The commander raises the alarm by shouting the attack, indicating that the attack was planned and coordinated. All the animals rushed forward in panic in all directions. Along with them, the admiral's subordinates carried out his order. To regain control, Bai Yu orders an end to the panic. the initiation of a protective protocol, and a complete lockdown of the island. At the same time, Murongjin gives the order to continue the execution of Medusa, reasoning that once she dies, there will be no reason to attack. It was at this critical moment that Xiao Xinyu and Dailu arrived, and Xiao Xinyu gave the command to act. As soon as they appeared, the regiment seemed to be cut in half by a powerful energy. Dailu, appearing in her powerful nine-tailed fox form, confidently replies that her master can rely on her. Her sudden appearance and impressive form shock those present. General Murongjin exclaims in amazement that it is a nine-tailed fox. However, Dailu, focused on the rescue, does not answer the jellyfish's questions, saying that first they need to get out, and they will discuss everything later. The general, having recovered from his surprise, turns to Dial, noting that the nine-tailed fox is being sought throughout the dragon state. He declares that so much the better, and sends both her and Medusa to the next world. There was chaos all around, and no one was able to stop it. However, before Murongjin can act, Bai Yu shouts at him to wait and look in a certain direction. Another mysterious figure appears there. This was the main character, but it was not immediately possible to recognize him under the mask. When asked if she is from the Yan clan, the mysterious newcomer replies evasively that they do not need to know. He came for only one reason. He declares that he came only for this snake, and that whoever stands in his way will die. His arrogant tone surprises some of those present, but Dailu notes that he has played the role well. Meanwhile, a group of people below are wondering who it is, but decide that it doesn't matter. They need to help first. However, the general declares him a man in black and states that only death awaits him for invading the naval headquarters. Another general promises a generous reward to anyone who captures him alive. At this moment, the mysterious man's spiritual power suddenly increased tenfold, leaving everyone amazed. Medusa herself noticed this. She studied and examined the guy. The guy tells Dial that he can hold out for 10 minutes at most, and then his life will be in her hands. With these words, General Murongjin commands to go forward into battle. Everyone listened to the words and commands of their general. So we were already in position. All that was left was to start the attack. Xiao Xinyu commands Dailu to act. The protagonist, entering the battle, shouts for her to take care of Medusa, taking on the main burden of the battle with the opponents. The girl heard her master's words and prepared for her battle. She accumulated her most powerful energy in order to be able to overcome everyone in her path. Its energy erupted into a bright explosion, accompanied by a loud sound. The poor subordinates found themselves under fire again, and they barely had the strength to even speak. A furious battle unfolds. Screams are heard and clashes of forces are visible. In the midst of the chaos, one of the generals, Gui Tian, becomes irritated with one of his own who asks why they are also being attacked. Attention shifts to Dailu. Murongjin remarks that the fox seems to have evolved. Bai Yu describes her new features: dragon scales, horns, claws, and pupils, and calls it the power of the dragon that disappeared 200 years ago. The general warns Bai Yu that this guy is extremely dangerous. Bai Yu, already aware of the threat, replies that he knows it himself. Meanwhile, fierce clashes continue on the battlefield. In the midst of the battle, another powerful creature appears, something the protagonist did not foresee. A beast of the Beast King form, known as the Cursed Demonic Branch. His appearance adds a new level of danger and uncertainty to an already chaotic situation. He opened his mouth and the boys flew down, straight into his stomach. They flew and looked up into the sky until the beast's ugly mouth slammed shut. Someone comments that it is better to see once than to hear 100 times, noting that this plant beast looks incredible. The cursed demon flower lives up to its reputation as a god among plant beasts, destroying enemies with a single blow. However, after this attack, Xiao Xinyu and Dailu are found alive. Xiao Xinyu asks in a confused tone where they are, and the answer is a frightening explanation. They are in the stomach of the cursed demonic flower. The rescued jellyfish was with them and explained what had happened to its rescuers. This discovery left Xiao Xinyu shocked and confused, especially when some more terrible beasts attacked them. Medusa looked around. She was trapped again. The main character did not lose hope of getting out of here, so he looked around to see what he should do. Dailu did everything in her power until she made a magical circle to protect them. Using his power, the guy tried to quickly scan the monsters. Xiao Xinyu does not lose his composure and gives Dailu a clear command: use dragon breath and attack the weak spot on the right, which the fox quickly did. She strained herself to carry out her master's order properly. Meanwhile, outside, the generals looked at the cursed demonic flower. Bai Yu says that whoever is swallowed by the cursed demon flower will experience torment as if their flesh is beginning to decompose. He is sure that even if this dragon Alice can do something, she will not be able to get out. However, his words are immediately refuted by a powerful explosion from within the creature, and Dial manages to escape from the cursed flower's stomach. Bai Yu can't believe it, exclaiming that this simply can't be true. The power of the dragon flame used by Dailu impressed Murongjin. Even this flower couldn't withstand the attack. The general says they have been fighting the Flame Alliance for 100 years, and Dailu is not on the top 10 wanted list. Who are they? Seeing that he has no intention of revealing his identity, Jin declares that they will have to arrest the guy and interrogate him slowly. However, before his threat can be carried out, a powerful explosion occurs at the beachhead. The destructive force of the explosion is so great that it surprises even the generals present, who are forced to acknowledge the power of the attack. The explosion creates chaos and, as cover, changes the balance of power on the battlefield. This explosion was made by a beast that had just emerged. Dailu is trying to somehow stop this powerful force. Xiao Xinyu notes the scale of the disaster with suppressed amazement. A picture of colossal destruction opens up. The earth is dug up, the rocks are split. Everything testifies to the monstrous force that swept through here. They realize that they are facing the effect of a force far beyond the ordinary, so the fox continues to fight. His companion, Dailu, silently surveys the area, her expression alternating between anxiety and concentration. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by the explosion, the protagonist turns to Dial. He warns that the fight cannot be prolonged, because the effect of the drug that gave him temporary strength will only last a little more than 3 minutes. Hearing this, Dailu understands that he needs to leave immediately. However, General Baiyu blocks their path, declaring the Myriad Vine's execution, and rushes to attack. The boys were surrounded from front and back, and Dailu was already in despair, thinking that all was lost. Baiyu claims that plant animals are naturally insensitive to pain, and that they have miscalculated. Meanwhile, the situation for rescuers is worsening. They are being attacked from 2 sides. Dailu is completely immobilized. The enemies were already approaching, ready to attack right now. At this critical moment, Xiao Xinyu gives Dailu an unexpected order. It was necessary to stop the resistance, suppress the dragon's power, and turn off the energy shield. Dailu, confused, asks why this is necessary, but Xiao Xinyu insists that she just do it. Dailu complies, her sudden refusal to resist and removal of her protection surprising General Baiyu. He stared at her and wondered about her motives. However, Jin, who was standing nearby, decided to take advantage of the moment. Believing that in any case, no enemy could withstand the blow. He prepares to deliver a crushing blow, but at that moment, Baiyu notices that Xiao Xinyu and Dailu are still alive. At the moment of the fatal blow of the Leviathan's trident, an unexpected defense is triggered, and the dragon's soul manifests from Dailu. Jin realized that it was a dragon soul and he was furious. This sight shocks Baiyu, who admits that this bastard was actually able to release the dragon soul. Dailu, stunned, realizes that she has survived. Xinyu explains that it is her ability, the dragon soul, that protects her from a fatal blow. However, the guy reports that his spiritual energy is almost at 0, and in a minute he may lose consciousness, or even die. So Dailu agreed to get out of here as quickly as possible. But Baiyu, having recovered from the shock, shouts that they will not leave. Despite Baiyu's warning, Xiao Xinyu and Dailu prepare to escape. The fox tried to eliminate the annoying opponents with 1 blow. While shouting at them, a wave of powerful energy seemed like it could knock them down at once. At this moment, the protagonist ordered to use another skill. Dailu obeyed and used one of her abilities, Bloody Gaze. The attack appears to be powerful and effective, and is quite impressive in itself. This gives the heroes some much-needed breathing space to try and escape. Jin says that they cannot allow the fugitives to escape from the island of ice and fire. He orders Leviathan to continue using the sea god's trident, calling for the complete destruction of his opponents. The order has been given and a new, even more powerful attack is being prepared, putting the heroes on the brink of death. Despite Jin's orders and the impending devastating attack, the heroes manage to escape. All this together could not give the heroes a chance to escape without consequences. Afterwards, a powerful explosion was visible. It did not die down for a long time, so strong were the forces of both sides. The main character barely held onto his beast. He screamed, not knowing what to do next. But it seems that all these screams were feigned, unless they were only from fear, just to avoid falling. As things begin to clear, the generals discover that their targets have disappeared. Baiyu reflects with annoyance on the power of the dragon's soul, admitting that he is still too old for such a confrontation. Enraged that the fugitives have escaped, Jin declares that this is the naval headquarters, and no one can just leave on a whim. He orders all available ships to comb the coastal waters. However, his plans are disrupted by an urgent message that the base is under attack by the Southern Island Alliance. The situation quickly deteriorates, with reports coming in that the first ship has been hit and is leaking. The 7th ship's turbine was damaged, and the captain of one of the ships was injured. Despite his subordinates' attempts to calm him down and report help, Jin is forced to reconsider his priorities. He gives a new order: abandon the search for the man in the black robe and urgently send Leviathan to the surface to help repel the attack. While Jin is trying to deal with the attack on the fleet, Dailu comes to his senses and anxiously starts looking for Xiao Xinyu, repeating his name. Her search quickly turns to panic when she doesn't find him nearby. The guy was sinking deeper and deeper into the water. He realized that the side effects were too strong. He really wanted to sleep, and it was too cold. But suddenly he floated past something big and alive. It was a girl. She was surrounded by dark snakes who were ready to protect her no matter what. She could take him in her palms. She was so big, and she also found the guy capable. because he stood up to two hunters. She opened her mouth, saying sorry to the guy, and stuck her tongue out under his body. Through his consciousness, the guy hears someone calling him, asking him to come to his senses quickly. He began to open his eyes and saw Dailu's eyes full of tears. Xiao Xinyu came to his senses, feeling pain. He doesn't understand where he is, asks questions about whether they made it and why his face hurts, as well as where they are in general. Dailu tells him that they are inside Medusa and reassures him that no animal can swim underwater as fast as she can. However, Xiao Xinyu, in a serious condition, addresses the girl as a fox, saying that this time he kept his word. Then he closed his eyes and responded more to Dailu's words. Suddenly a jellyfish appeared from the depths. She reports that Xiao Xinyu is seriously injured and unconscious. His condition is very serious, and suggests stopping on an uninhabited island. She noticed this uninhabited island ahead, where she could help the main character. Meanwhile, at the naval base, Murong Jin, breathing heavily and apparently injured, expresses his disappointment and shame. All because even two generals could not cope with the task. Suddenly, the Empress's incredibly beautiful beast appeared in the sky. She was also on it, saw those standing below and headed towards them. The Empress's name is pronounced with obvious fear and trepidation, emphasizing the seriousness of the consequences that await them. Murong Jin and Baiyu report the failure. Murong Jin regrets that he did not live up to the Empress's trust. He admits that the prisoner escaped, and tried to justify himself by citing an attack by other forces that prevented them. However, the Empress, not wanting to listen to excuses, sharply asks who took Medusa away. Murong Jin reports that it was a man in a black cloak and a demon-faced mask, and his battle beast was the nine-tailed fox Dailu. The Empress is furious that the two generals failed to protect the naval headquarters. At this moment, Baiyu adds that the attackers had the power of a dragon, and the nine-tailed fox even had a dragon soul. Hearing about the dragon's power and the dragon's soul, the Empress becomes confused, mentally denying the possibility of this, but then pulls herself together. She asks where the man in black ran off to, and states that she will discuss the general's punishment upon her return. Having received the answer that they had disappeared to the southeast, the Empress apparently decided to personally take up this matter. Her decision to intervene personally causes Baiyu to conclude that great changes are coming to the dragon state. Meanwhile, in a safe place, Dailu shares his thoughts with Medusa, admitting that without her master, she would have died long ago in the dark cave. Medusa, in turn, asks a question that worries her. Is Dailu's relationship with Xiao Xinyu too close? Jellyfish realizes the problem. There is no fresh water on the island. At this moment, Xiao Xinyu deliriously asks for a drink. The girl didn't think for long. She waved and cut her finger. Seeing his grave condition, Dailu takes drastic measures, using her own blood to feed him and heal him. This selfless act shocks Medusa, who cannot believe that Dailu is willing to spend her own blood for a human. When asked what happened, it becomes clear that Dailu did something extraordinary to save her master. A little later, a vision appeared. The figure of a strong woman appeared. Xiao Xinyu shouts out Shangguanlan's name. She somehow influenced the main character, causing his scream to resound throughout the area. Then Xiao Xinyu finally comes to his senses. Dailu tells him with great relief that he slept all morning, and she was very worried. Xiao Xinyu, still weak, asks where they are this time. Dailu replies that it is an uninhabited island near the magical strait. At this moment, an emotional connection arises between them, which is reflected in the increased level of Dailu's affection for him. However, this intimate scene is interrupted by Medusa coughing, who asks with slight irony how long they will continue to make out here. A new object, a crown, appears in the frame, perhaps indicating a new discovery, attracts attention. The girl handed the main character a glass of liquid. The guy noticed that she was incredibly attractive, so he was taken aback for a moment, not knowing what to say. His face immediately flushed with embarrassment. He already wanted to thank the jellyfish. Medusa, whose real name is Shasha, interrupts the thanks, saying that she should be the one thanking them, because they saved her life. Xiao Xinyu modestly replies that there is no need for formalities and that it was not difficult, but Medusa insists. She says that the snake tribe always repays kindness, especially for saving a life, and invites him to ask for whatever he wishes. Xiao Xinyu, with a slight smile, asks again if she should be embarrassed. A little later, he makes an unexpected and daring wish, saying that everything is simple. He wants her.